Hello everybody, welcome to a 4-round mock draft. Now this has been so long in the making, done so much work and a lot of time into this very mock draft. Now I will give you guys a few warnings. There were some slides on skill positions. Like, I don't know if it just didn't account in my brain, but there are some. If I were to do it over again, then I would not have like falling so far down, but skill positions just ended up falling down the draft. Whether it was wide receivers, tight ends, like players just ended up falling down the draft for me. And like I said, if I were to do it over again, I think I'd find a way to squeeze these guys in, but I kind of just went with the flow. Team needs, I was looking, and these are all very like, it took a lot of time to make every single one of these picks. It ended up just naturally happening, and I don't know, like, I just didn't end up really taking a lot of, I would say, skill positions early on. So it was very interesting to see how this draft board developed down the line. I would say that the third round was very exciting. Let's hop right into this thing. First player we'll end up taking is obviously Caleb Williams. It's been the consensus, it's been the thing to talk about. Now Caleb Williams, more of your improviser type quarterback that does a lot well, but also has some stuff to work on, but in my opinion is clearly QB1. He's in a tier of his own. You go down a tier, and that's where you kind of get into the Drake May, Jaden Daniels, who are a lot closer right now than people thought initially coming into the draft process. Early on, it was a lot of Drake May, number 2, and then Jaden Daniels was possibly like, you know, a marginal top 10 pick, and now it's been Daniels for people at 2 and stuff. So there's been Caleb Williams at number 1. He displays great talent in my opinion. I really do like what he does. Like, I really do watch and understand the whole thing with Caleb Williams. Now there is some stuff with Jaden Daniels I have some question marks on when it comes to watching tape, but other than that, I mean, Drake May and Jaden Daniels, I could see the debate for them being close, but number 1, undisputed, Caleb Williams, unanimous decision, I think, throughout the draft community right now. Obviously some people might want to try to change it up, I guess, but Caleb Williams probably consensus number 1 overall pick and the number 1 quarterback in the class. Number 2 overall, we are going Drake May here. I think it just makes the most sense. I think he is the more pro-ready guy. I wouldn't say higher upside because I think Jaden Daniels is slightly higher upside, but I think Drake May and the running aspect of his game is a little underrated and unaccounted for when we talk about him. So I'm going to bring that up here. Drake May, very creative quarterback. I think he does have some of that pizzazz that we see from Caleb Williams. Well, the improv probably isn't as good and not as consistently amazing or whatever. Drake May still has great arm talent, launches it down the field more than any other quarterback in this class that I've seen. I think that his mobility is like underrated right now. I don't even think it's getting talked about. So I would like to see Drake May be the number 2 pick. I think he is better than Jaden Daniels, and that's really what it comes down to here for me. Now you will see a little bit of everything here. You'll see Jaden Daniels perhaps getting picked at this spot. For some people, Drake May might actually slide past 3 and make it to like the 5th pick or somewhere where teams could trade up for him, and I'd say it's well worth it if that ends up happening, but I don't think it will. I think Drake May is pretty I would say he's locked in for a top 3 pick. I don't see a reality where all these quarterbacks don't go 1, 2, and 3. Maybe Jaden Daniels would be the one to slide. He has some small like processing issues, I think, that I saw and that I've heard you know, experts talk about. And I don't say experts like they don't know what they're talking about. I'm saying experts because there's a certain community in this the draft community that know a lot better than a lot of other people. They're a lot more plugged in, so I refer to those as experts. And so it's not your local Joe that hops on and hits a lot and I'd say he's an expert. No, that's unaccounted for. I'd say that's a good guy, but whatever. I'm getting off the point here. Jaden Daniels and Drake May. I'd still have Drake May at 2, and that's why he is here at 2, the 2nd overall pick to the Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels, we were just talking about him. He's going to go number 3 overall to the New England Patriots here. I don't think it's a bad pick. Now, I did mention he might have a few issues when it comes to consistent accuracy, and then his processing can take a little bit much. He takes quite a while to click off his first reads at times. There's just some up and down things. But I really do like the upside of Jaden Daniels, and people draft off traits now in the NFL, and we know that. You just can't really you know, look at Daniels and say, this guy not worth the top 3 pick. He's very highly touted. I know the NFL probably really likes his upside. Probably a run quarterback now. He might want to, you know, run now, but then process and I guess, develop his passing game through his first and second year and then look for that third year jump or breakout for Jaden Daniels. I wouldn't expect him to be the best passer right away, but he's still phenomenal with his legs, and I guess he's very light on his feet. He's got a slender frame, and he needs to stop taking big hits. That's one thing for sure if he's going to last in the NFL. We saw Anthony Richardson. He's no slouch. He's a pretty jocked dude, right? We've all seen Anthony Richardson and 6'4", 240, something like that. He's huge. And he still got hurt from being a little reckless. So hopefully not the same with Jaden Daniels, and he ends up being the pick for me at number 3. And it'll be Marvin Harrison for me at number 4 for the Arizona Cardinals. Pretty consensus pick here. Wherever the quarterbacks end, Marvin Harrison starts. I think he is wide receiver 1. I think people are trying to make it maybe a little different with saying Malik Neighbors is wide receiver 1, and there are some NFL teams I've heard. All right, I'm not plugged in. All right, I don't know Jack. Who am I to say this? But I've heard some people at least have Malik Neighbors over Marv, but that just could just be like scheme fit wise and all that. But I think talent wise, receiver wise, overall player wise, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the number 1, and I have no problem taking him here inside the top 4. I could even consider him at 3 and or at 2 if the Washington Commanders say, okay, we like Sam Howell more than Drake May and Jaden Daniels. We can trade out and get some massive trade compensation, obviously, and move back to a spot where we can get a Marvin Harrison Jr., that sort of deal. But he's going to the Cardinals here for me at 4. There is no trades in this mock draft. I will eventually do like 3-round mocks with trades. I think that that'll be quite fun, and my mocks heading forward should have some trades as well. But yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. slotted in at number 4. Great pick for the Cardinals for me in the first top 5 picks. Nothing has really been off. Nothing's really been changed. It's been quite consensus so far. Number 5, I'm going Malik Neighbors. Now, Brock Bowers is the highly rumored and wanted guy for the Chargers right now, and I'd say he's probably consensus at this spot, but I'm going to have them taking a receiver. They need someone else. Johnston was perhaps pushed up. Maybe he wasn't the biggest talent last year, but his body profile and his size really made him an outlier in last year's class. People probably took him a little bit higher than you should have, and Malik Neighbors here at 5, not a bad pick at all. Like I said, some people actually have Neighbors or Odunze over Marvin Harrison Jr. I personally don't. I would probably go Marv, Neighbors, Odunze, and then we hit that next tier. I'd say Marv is in a tier of his own, actually. Down a tier, you have Neighbors and Odunze. Those two are very close for me. I have to wait till my final evals and after combine and stuff like that to really make the ranking, you know, stick for me. But yeah, Neighbors for me, I like him. He's electric. He gives you something you don't have on that offense. You know how you have Darius Davis, who's kind of your kick returner. I think they tried to plug him in last year to the offense for a few plays that were designed for Darius Davis, like some deep round pick, might be even 4th actually, last year for them out of TCU that ended up being a good kick and punt returner. I think you're looking for some electricity on that offense to put with Justin Herbert, and I think you're doing a great job with Neighbors. Allen's more of a technician, and then you can maybe look for a tight end via free agency, or I actually think I might have one later down the board for them. I could definitely be wrong, but there are like situations that the Chargers can explore here. There are options, and there are plenty of them. I mean, Brock Bowers, Odunze, you can even take Joe Alt, flip him to right tackle, or Rashawn Slater to right tackle, whatever you want to do. There are different avenues that the Chargers can do all day long. They can trade down. This is a quarterback spot right here. If someone wanted to trade up and potentially get a JJ McCarthy, who's getting huge buzz right now, we'll have to see. Obviously, we don't know, but my mock has Malik Neighbors at 5 for the Chargers. It is Odunze for me at number 6 overall for the New York Giants, and this is something they've been missing in that receiving room. I don't think that they have the biggest of targets. Darren Waller's obviously like a big receiver playing at tight end for you, but it's kind of how much, you know, he's not really reliable at this point, and how much do you trust like Darius Slade and Isaiah Hodgins to be that like X receiver, that true like size, go up and get it type of guy? And there is debatably one person better in this draft, one wide receiver that might actually be better than Odunze at jump balls, and that is Keon Coleman, who's just a freak athlete, and we'll see him later in the mock. Obviously 4 rounds, you can't let Keon Coleman slip out of 4 rounds. Obviously I know I'm a little bit lower on him than most. Odunze, we're gonna shuffle back over here. I just tend to get a little off a little bit here, so sorry, I do apologize. But Odunze, super fun physical specimen, man. I just kind of, you'd look at at him and you say, there's no way he runs as fast as he does. He jumps really high. He's got great concentration. He's got the work ethic too. Saw an interview with him recently, and he was like working with the basketball team doing rebound drills to try to get a little bit better physically and down the field with like jump ball opportunities, as his hit rate went up huge this year. And the percentage of 50-50s went way more in his favor than they were last year. He had a solid year last year. People liked him, but you cannot go like 1 out of 3 people will rave about Rome Odunze. I'm not one of those, and you still hear how high I am on him. And for him to still be worth a 6 overall pick, it's very good. And Odunze has a great shot. And if I'm being honest, I think his floor is higher than Neighbors already, just because if he doesn't work out like really as much as the average number 6 overall receiver would, I think he still has the ability to just moss anyone that's in front of him. So say he might lack a few things at the beginning of his NFL career, he still has one thing, and that is his athleticism, and also has the jump ball ability, like just raises his floor at the NFL level. So we'll get to see what he does, how it translates to the NFL. I think it will translate very well. And Rome Odunze, that is pretty much why he's worth the number 6 overall pick. Notre Dame tackle Joe Alt will be the pick for me here at number 7 for the Tennessee Titans. Now, this is a guy that is about as blue chip as it gets in this draft, maybe other than Marvin Harrison, right? So Joe Alt, very solid overall pick here. I don't think that there's many things missing. He's very solid and just great in pass protection, does what he needs to do in the run, and he's just overly solid. He's great. He, like I said, if you guys don't know what a blue chip prospect is, someone that you like basically know is going to be good right out of the gates and you literally can't miss. So that's kind of your blue chip guy here is Joe Alt, and I don't think you can miss here at pick number 7 if Joe Alt is on the board. I think this is a sprint to the podium type of pick for the Tennessee Titans, as they will look to punch in and get a tackle of the future for Will Levis. This might actually be another trade down spot if they aren't as high on Alt and they like prefer a Talise Fuaga down the board. Number 7 overall, very solid. I don't think you could be in a better spot here if you're the Tennessee Titans. Bo Nix off the board, first big surprise of the mock, and I'd say that this one is a huge one. I went over and I just watch Bo Nix tape every here and there to see if like maybe if I have a fresh perspective on Bo Nix, and it never changes. I'm still very high on Bo Nix. I think he is so very good. I don't get a lot of I think his past comes to haunt him. He has a past in Oregon where or in Auburn, where he wasn't like the best, obviously, right? Moves up to Oregon, has 2 very stellar seasons. You can go back and watch, and they're very good years. But just watching like solely 2023 tape, Bo Nix to me looks really good. And I don't think that he's in the conversation with the McCarthy and Penix. I think he is a tier above. Now, I think it goes, this is tough here with the bottom 3 and Nix, McCarthy, and Penix. If anything, I think Nix and Penix are closer than it is JJ McCarthy and Bo Nix, which is getting talked about a lot. But the prospect that JJ McCarthy is and what he might offer as traits wise as a ceiling, I think it might be a little bit better than a Michael Penix. So that's why teams are like thinking about JJ McCarthy, and obviously Penix has an injury history to hold him back. Nix is the most, like, I think he has the most starts in college history. Maybe, just maybe, this isn't the case, and maybe it's JJ McCarthy here, and this is if the Falcons don't pursue Fields. Kirk Cousins is a name out there. There's a few others that they could perhaps go with, but to me, Bo Nix, if they don't have a quarterback at this time that they are comfortable with, Nix is the easy pick here for me if you're going to take a quarterback. Laiatu Latu for me at number 9 for the Chicago Bears. Teams talk about, or people will talk about the injury history here for Laiatu Latu, and he was medically retired at the University of Washington. It's not great, and that normally, hits up your draft stock pretty bad or bangs it up or whatever. This, as much as people don't want to believe it, I think teams can almost disregard that because I can't remember exactly what the topic was or what the exact situation was for Laiatu Latu when it came to his medical retirement, but it's a little something you could sweep aside. I think that I'd be surprised to see if it hindered him to the point where he's getting picked at the bottom of the first round, because he's so good. He is relentless. He's got the most moves. He's got the deepest bag. He's got the biggest arsenal out of any pass rusher and the best game plan to get to a quarterback. And in today's game, that is more valuable than a lot of other positions. And most importantly, any position on a defense. I think you're trying to get the best edge rusher. I think that is probably the most important defensive position, that just when it comes down to player pressures and production, basically you can't just say sacks as production for edge rushers. So I'd say pressures, win rate, and sacks. Laiatu Latu, man, I really love the player. I really like the situation here at number 9. You give some speed and some finesse on the other side of Montez Sweat, who recently goes over to the Bears, leads 2 teams in sacks in the same year. Never happened before, I don't think. So Laiatu Latu, people are going to be down on him. I know his name's going to drop after the combine. He's going to test pretty marginally, pretty average, and he's going to be kind of mediocre, if you will, at the combine. But turn on the tape, watch Laiatu Latu. He's great. I truly believe that he's going to go number 9 overall here in the mock, and maybe this is a little too high. Maybe I'm trying to give him a little bit more of a spotlight than a lot of other people right now, but I'm just fine with that. Olu Fashanu here for the Jets. It's a perfect scenario for them. At number 10, you're getting Olu Fashanu, who people are really hitting up right now. They are really, I guess, dropping, I should say. The consensus on Fashanu has fallen so far now, and it's almost consensus that Talise Fuaga is above Olu Fashanu. I highly don't think that. I mean, it's close. It's closer than people maybe like to think if you're a Olu Fashanu believer, right? In my opinion, Fashanu is still great, super good on his feet, but he might just struggle with a little bit of power. And he had a great strength and conditioning program over there at Penn State, one of the best. It's not what you'd like to see, but yes, he might struggle with power over here and there. It doesn't matter. He's still incredible athlete, still very good at in pass sets. He's very good, and maybe worse in the run than Joe Alt and Talise Fuaga. So you can kind of see where the downfall of Fashanu is. Don't get it wrong here. If you're the Jets, go with Olu. I don't think that Talise Fuaga is the pass protector Olu is. And at the NFL level, you're going to see some pretty good pass rushers, but you're also going to see some pretty good speed guys who Talise Fuaga might struggle against. There's some guys that can get to his outside hip, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Talise Fuaga ends up being way better than Fashanu. I still think those two are close, but I do like the upside and the traits of Fashanu more than Talise Fuaga, and I'm a Talise Fuaga guy all the way. But to me, Fashanu should and probably will be higher on NFL teams, boards, and stuff like that, just because of the upside. And we talk about it all the time. Traits are huge in today's game. People draft on traits, and Fashanu's got them. Dallas Turner, talk about traits. This guy looks like he tacked on a lot of weight from last year. Size was I wouldn't say a huge concern, but it was a concern heading into this year. He looks over 250 now. People are guessing 255 to 260. Dallas Turner comes in. He has a nice weigh-in, and then at his combine, he should do pretty good. But he was just great at getting outside, inside, good power, good speed to power. He was just a good edge rusher overall, and another guy that teams might just really like based off of, again, traits. But I could also see Jared Verse being the pick here at 11. I can see a Jerzon Newton here. There are ways that the Minnesota team can go. JJ McCarthy might be in the race for him, obviously. This will be a fun one to look at. I think this is probably where we're getting into that question mark territory, and we have a row of teams here: quarterback needy, quarterback needy, quarterback needy, and not so quarterback needy because they basically just stuck to Derek Carr. Shame on them, right? The New Orleans Saints just committed to Derek Carr basically over the next 2 years, which contract-wise is not that smart, but whatever. You know, they free up some cap space and they'll try to win now in a weak division. I don't disagree with that philosophy, but is what it is. I'd say it's still a good pick. Dallas Turner at number 11. And we'll move on with our day to go to the Denver Broncos at 12. Terrion Arnold will be the pick here for me at 12. Sorry for the little mumble there, but Terrion Arnold is the pick. And I think that they just need someone else in the secondary. Now, I understand you have Pat Surtain, and yes, bringing another Alabama corner on the other side, that would be pretty cool, and it's needed. Honestly, you can't have, I think it's Fabian Moreau playing on the other side right now, and then they have themselves a fun slot player in McMillan, I can't remember. I think it is McMillan, and he's turned into quite the fun one to watch. You just needed another guy, and talk about a spark plug in Terrion Arnold. Great athlete. He's got some good length. Maybe his size isn't the best, listed at 6 foot. I can honestly see him weighing in closer to 5'10", 5'11", but probably around 5'11", 6 foot, and maybe lacks in overall weight a little bit. That's just fine. I'm okay with Arnold the pick here at 12. I probably wouldn't have him as my corner 1. I think Quinion Mitchell's my corner 1, then probably DeJean, maybe. I don't know. I haven't done my corner rankings, and I'm not going to start now. That's a tough conversation, and once you really start thinking about it, it can get quite crazy. We have Denver going with corner. It's a need. He's a good player. It's a good fit. Give him, I guess, give him a good player here and the good fit. Taliese Fuaga, the most fun to watch mauling at tackle in this draft. No doubt about it. Fuaga does a lot for you as a pillar, as a guy in power. Antonio Pierce is one of the old school head coaches. He'd love to see some just brutal pancakes by Fuaga, and he'll probably feed him a little extra pancakes, maybe the protein ones, and Fuaga could get even bigger. I think that he's just fine where he is. Looked great at the Senior Bowl. He's a total anchor, wins with power, but I did say earlier where he might struggle with a little bit of some twitchy guys like him versus Chop Robinson. Would have been a fun one if Chop was at the Senior Bowl. I think he did see an opportunity or two against Adisa Isaac. Now, I definitely could be wrong. I feel like they were on opposite teams, so maybe not, but seeing more speed against Fuaga would have been great, and I would have been curious to see like against some elite speed rushers. When guys get outside, that's where he might struggle, maybe overcommits a little bit, whatever. But Fuaga, for the most part, he's just an absolute pillar, and in pass pro, he looked a lot better than a lot of people thought he would in and throughout the season. He's great in the run, and he's just proved himself in the pass against the pass rush, obviously. Taliese Fuaga, well worth the 13th overall pick, in my opinion, and goes to a team where I think he really fits the culture, maybe a little bit more than other guys would. Another right tackle, J.C. Latham, off the board out of Alabama to the New Orleans Saints. He's solid. He's huge. He's listed at 360. I think 6'6", 360 is what he's listed at. A little crazy. He might be closer to that 350, 345 range, but who knows? He might actually come in and weigh 360. Now, people like to point out his last game. It's probably a pretty bad one. Was it the national championship? I don't think so. I could be wrong. I so out of touch with college football, so I couldn't tell you. But Latham, solid prospect, probably gonna have a nice floor for you if you need anything, and if you're sticking to Derek Carr and you're gonna try to win, you want to keep him a little bit more protected. And on that right side, I think Ryan Ramczyk plays there now. Something with when it was first diagnosed, I think he has some like infected cartilage or something in his knee that could all be dismissed now. I don't know. I haven't looked at the situation recently, and that is my bad. Should do more research obviously here, but even if not, I'm sure either Ramczyk or Latham could go play the left side and do a pretty good job over the other guy they have there. It's Andurus Pete. He's been getting older, and it shows a little bit in his play, so Latham is just a need here. Maybe, you know, you want to look at a Brock Bowers. That'd be pretty huge here at 15. Maybe Brock Bowers another place. When you look at Latham, I don't think that he's someone you want to pass up here. When there are some other avenues, I think Jared Verse is somewhere you go. It's a deeper edge class. Once you look at like the second round, maybe you can get one of these guys. We'll have to see what actually ends up happening here. This is another team where they could do so many different things, but Latham, obviously, getting picked inside the top 15, I think he deserves to be there. Passing on Brock Bowers and going for Jared Verse. I like Jelani Woods a lot, and he's massive, and that's a great counterpart to Brock Bowers, but I don't know why Brock just ended up sliding, but I think it has kind of gone under everyone's radar right now, the fact that he is a little bit smaller. I'm not gonna lie. He might be close to the 230 range, which is pretty bad for a tight end. So that might knock him a little bit, but it doesn't matter. He will probably not fall this far. He's never fallen this far for me personally ever, and I don't think he ever will again. This is kind of just a how it worked out sort of deal. And like I said, skill positions just ended up sliding, and here's an early example in Brock Bowers falling past the top 15 overall picks, which is crazy. But I guess we should get on about Jared Verse here, who, in my opinion, great player. Plays with an outstanding floor with his power. the quickness he has, and the work ethic. I think this guy tacked on closer to 30-40 pounds in one off season when he transferred over to Florida State. Wasn't seeing the play time. I think he transferred from like Albany. Oh my, Jared Verse was a force to be reckoned with over the course of the last 2 seasons. I think if he came out last year, he'd be right around the same area, so it shows little improvement, but I think it's still great to have a player like this on your team. And for the Indianapolis Colts that have Samson Ebukam, did a good job through the late end of the season. I don't know what his contract looked like. I didn't even care, because I'm taking Jared Verse 10 times out of 10 over Samson Ebukam, even if Jared Verse ends up not being like as good as he's, you know, maybe coming in as, or looking at Jared Verse to say, oh, this guy's gonna be great. Maybe he's not worth the top 15, but I think he's still better than Ebukam, and there's no real debate here on whether it's a need or not. I think you need someone else, and I think you're also going to need to bolster that defensive line with guys like Grover Stewart getting older, DeForest Buckner with his contract, and he's also getting older. Gotta start stacking on the defensive line. I think Verse does a great job of doing that. Talk about defensive line, we are going Jerzon Newton. No, we're not. It's frozen. All right, we're going Jerzon Newton here, interior defensive line for the Seattle Seahawks. They are probably going to lose Leonard Williams, I think, after they traded for him halfway through this year. Yeah, I think that sounds right. And they have Jaron Reed and Draymond Jones, who's a lot of the same of Johnny Newton, and probably even smaller. I think Draymond Jones is more towards that 285 area. Newton should weigh in closer to 200 or 300, but might be at 295 or so. I think that's what he's listed at right now. Hopefully he bulks up and gets a little bit bigger at measure, or at weigh-in for the combine, because I think Newton is a great player. He plays with some great get-up. I know Byron Murphy is someone that's talked about right now as perhaps a player at the defensive tackle or D-line one. And yeah, maybe as a true nose tackle, you'd rank him higher, but I don't think that's what Seattle needs. I think they need some juice inside to match well with what they have outside, and Boye Mafe, who's really come on, and Uchenna Nwosu was a good player for them a year back after his injury over the course of this season. Even a guy like Darrell Taylor stepped up, and I could still see them going edge here if any of the top 3 fall to him. I don't see a Chop Robinson here, or even as much as Braylon Trice or Darius Robinson. I don't think they're a first half of the first round guys. I think you need a defensive end to slip to here. Maybe Jared Verse might be the pick, whatever it is. If one of them comes here, I don't think that it would be a bad decision to go that way over Johnny Newton, but I just like Jerzon Newton, who goes by Johnny and Jerzon. I don't know where that came from, but whatever. Johnny Newton, power, speed. He's got the nose against the run. After the little tape I saw on him before just picking him here, I was making sure. I went back and watched a game of Johnny Newton, went back and watched a game of Byron Murphy, and I was like, okay, that kind of solidifies it for me. I'm going to go Jerzon Newton here, and I'm pretty happy about it, and I think the Seattle Seahawks would be pretty good about it. The Seattle Sea Chickens, I actually almost call them there, but they're not going to catch a stray deliberately in this. We'll move on to the 17th overall pick with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Quinyon Mitchell, the 17th overall pick. Darius, what's his name? Is it Darius? No, it's not Robinson. There's someone on the cornerback. It's Tyson Campbell and Darius something that's playing corner for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's on the wrong side of 30. Darius, whatever his last name is, I seriously can't remember. So Quinyon Mitchell would come in and fill a need right away, and maybe Darius wants to slide inside to the slot, or maybe Tyson Campbell does, whatever. You have 2 very good, talented corners in Quinyon and Tyson Campbell right away. It was a little bit of a liability for them last year, was their defensive backfield, in my opinion. Just watching the Jags, I think they got carved up a little bit with the lack of maybe attention to detail. There was a lot of, we didn't even look like we practiced out there. I know that was actually a statement from Trevor Lawrence. They literally, like, that was a quote. They looked like they don't practice, and that's crazy coming from your quarterback. And how sloppy the offense was. The defense wasn't looking great at times, not very polished all around. I think their defensive line was good at times. I feel like they had their games. Edge, probably not an opportunity here if someone falls to him, maybe. D-line, I think that Byron Murphy wouldn't be quite worth it yet. I mean, possibly, but I'd still take the talent in Quinyon Mitchell over an interior. Maybe not as much of a need, but corner, you know, there's a lot of great receivers in today's game, and you're going to need people to cover them, and Quinyon Mitchell does it very well. And I think he'll do a really good job in the league, and I'm excited to see where he goes in the mock draft, or in the NFL draft, because these mocks, I like to push him a little bit higher. This is a little bit further down than I think I've had him in the past. I think I have him with the Colts, the Broncos at 12, so I like him quite a bit. And for him to fall to 17, I think it's great for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Brock Bowers to the Bengals. All right, now this is one to take in. No, I'm not a Cincinnati fan. It might look like it, but no. Bowers falling to the to the Cincinnati Bengals is crazy. This is never gonna happen. I don't think if you do 100 mocks, I don't know. I'm probably getting close to that actually. But I don't know how this happened. I'm going to be honest. You can fit him in. I think even with the Seahawks, I think Noah Fant's contract's done even, I think, 2024 or 2025. The Colts could use one, but they have so many different needs and playmakers already at tight end. And I just thought Verse would probably be the better pick for them. But if I could go back and do it over, I would slide Brock Bowers somewhere into the top 12, 15 picks. But man, if he falls all the way to 18, I don't think you hesitate if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. I understand the need for tackle. Good for you. This is one of the best tackle classes we've had in a while, actually. Even interior, if you don't like that, and if you retain Jonah Williams, I get the want for tackle here, because obviously you're going to lose Jonah Williams, or it looks that way. But if you end up retaining him, playing him at right tackle, Orlando Brown sticks at left, and you do have a nice interior line, why not go Brock Bowers, who, by the way, is a great blocker? I don't see the downside here. I think this is a sprint to the podium pick. I think that this is a Brock Bowers destination, who might be a top 5 player in this draft overall as a talent, and falling to 18. Again, I don't see how this ever happens ever again. Maybe some people out there are a lot lower on Brock Bowers. I know there's the type that don't think that positional value, whatever. I will always pick him so early, always. But once he slid past the Chargers, I guess the gateways just opened up, and he just kept going down the slide, or the line, whatever you want to say, and he slid to 18. Unheard of. Brock Bowers, enjoy this way you can, Cincinnati fans, because I don't think this will ever be a reality again. I don't think you should even think that this is possible. I don't know how he got here, but I had to I had to get him off the board, and Cincinnati, there's no better spot, in my opinion. Rams have a need in the back end, and Nate Wiggins is going to take care of that. So Nate Wiggins would come out and be a boundary corner for you instead of Quentin Lake and Kobe Durant, I think, are your guys right now. So my bad for thinking those guys aren't up to the challenge. They played great. They had a lot of standouts from late draft picks last year, and they played really well on that defense. Raheem Morris is gone now. Maybe you could stop relying on scheme or whatever made them good. And maybe, listen, they're possibly great players, and sorry to offend them here with picking a player that'll shuffle them down the depth chart, but Nate Wiggins instantly improves your secondary. I think it's as simple as that. Lengthy, high upside, athletic corner, and as long as you are putting pieces together on that defense, I think Nate Wiggins, there's no reason this guy couldn't also be a pillar to build around for the next I guess, generation of the Rams, because they are kind of shuffling outside of an era, if you will, with the Matthew Staffords, the Aaron Donalds of the world. Kobe Turner's looked like a great player for them. He needs to probably be a little bit better against the run, but well worth the 3rd round pick last year. They've got a few other players in there that getting a little older, and some people that are just incredibly marginal, or mediocre, I guess, but that's such a harsh word when it comes to football players. So Nate Wiggins at 19, easy pick for me for the Rams. Steelers, I'm going Tyler Guyton at pick number 20. Now this guy is possibly a little even underrated right now after getting so much hype, and he's ranked the 26th overall player after, possibly being a 2nd rounder, even just last month or before the Senior Bowl. Goes to the Senior Bowl, that has a great Senior Bowl, but yeah, he is incredibly light on his feet for 320 plus pounds, possibly. I forgot the official measurement. I think he was closer to 323 or something like that. I can't quite remember. I have the Senior Bowl measurements. I could pull it up real quick, but I'm not going to. Tyler Guyton, incredible. All right, I'm telling you, the upside is huge on this guy, and to put him next to Broderick Jones, holy crap, you can have quite the fun there. I think Guyton, he plays right tackle. I think he can slide to left because Broderick Jones might want to stick at right or whatever. Whoever looks worse through training camp, you're going to keep at the spot, and then you're probably just going to flip the other. I think that's the way I do it, but I'm a very simple-minded guy when it comes to common sense of football, because there are so many different ways a lot of other people tend to look at things, and maybe I'm not that intelligent when it comes to like football schemes, but I think that's just the way I would do it, right? Am I wrong for that? JPJ, Jackson Powers Johnson, an absolute steal for the Miami Dolphins here at 21, in my my opinion, yeah, there is a Troy Fautanu on the board. All right, you could debatably say that he's the better pick, because if Teron Armstead continues to struggle with his injuries and his known reliability, he's not that great. He's not constantly on the field for you. He's probably guaranteed to miss a couple of games over the course of the season. Fautanu has that left tackle versatility to move out there, and he's such a talented player. But Jackson Powers-Johnson dominated the Senior Bowl after having a great season with Oregon. Really comes out and stamps his spot in the interior offensive line class. I don't think that there is one guy better than him. Barton might actually be a little higher for some people. I don't know why I said it, Barton, but yeah, Barton might actually be a little bit higher on some people's boards because of the versatility there. But when it comes to sheer football players, I think Jackson Powers-Johnson is as good as it gets on the interior offensive line. Now, the talents of Troy Fautanu, no offense, but I think I'm taking the solid known, I guess, play from Jackson Powers-Johnson than taking Troy Fautanu's talent and projecting it to guard. Now, I might be wrong for that again. I think the better pick here for Miami in a win now team, I think Jackson Powers-Johnson is the best pick. He makes the most sense for this spot. I'm more than happy with the pick at 21. Cooper DeJean at 22. Now, some Eagles fans will literally fight you for this. I don't know why. I don't know what I do to them that makes them so mad, but the explanation's too good here for DeJean to fit with this Philadelphia team. He's a great athlete. He's just a natural athlete, and that works really well for the Philadelphia Eagles. We're seeing what they're doing right now just through that whole team. And I think DeJean just has a great floor right away. He can play boundary, and best yet, I think he's a defensive back. I don't think he's your boundary corner. I don't think he's a slot cornerback. I don't think he's a safety. I think he's a defensive back that can literally play all those positions at I wouldn't say a very high level, but some higher than other. I think boundary would probably be where he projects like the best. He can be an above average safety for you very easily, and getting that at 22, that versatility, so you're not having a Bradley Roby in. You're not relying on a second-year Elijah Ricks. Now, people really like to say Keely Ringo and Elijah Ricks are so good. We have James Bradbury. We have Darius Slay. Cooper DeJean would come in and be our fifth-string corner, dude. No, DeJean would be your number 2 to Darius Slay. Well, Ricks and Ringo still figure it out, and they're kind of learning now. And then boom, say Reed Blankenship or Kevin Byard go down in the back of the safeties, or in the back with your safety position. Cooper DeJean perhaps slides back there for a game or two while you move Ringo or Ricks up into one of those spots. So whatever. I don't care if you hate the pick and you're a Phillies fan, or even if you're not. If you're just a Philadelphia guy, you hate the pick, cool. But if you're like, I don't know, some Chiefs fan, you're like, no, dude, Eagles don't need that. Like, I don't get that. I don't, not saying that you don't have as much knowledge on the team. I'm saying I just the whole like fan, if the average fan doesn't like this, I just don't get how it doesn't like click in your brain that this might actually be a good pick. So sorry to hate and rant a little bit on the comment section. Obviously, Cooper DeJean, 22 overall, tremendous value, and a very fun, versatile defensive player. In my opinion, it helps your team so much if you're looking to win right now, which might be a stretch because of how they ended last season, but you're just adding a piece in DeJean. I think he's very good, and I think it's great value here. I couldn't think of anything else maybe other than Brian Thomas to come in and help them here. Like, I would literally probably the only other thing I'd consider here. Never mind. Amarius Mims and Troy Fautanu are on the board, so I lied about that. And even Patrick Paul. For people that are saying Patrick Paul can't get picked inside the top, like the first round, I think you guys don't know how high he's probably going to be on teams' boards. I think he's actually going to be significantly higher than the general perception of his value is going to be. I think he's going to be a bit better on NFL boards. Byron Murphy, interior defensive lineman, going to the Texans. I think Sheldon Rankins, great. Malik Collins, they're good, right? Like they're not Byron Murphy. Byron Murphy should test not out of this world, but he should test like pretty good. He's got the moves already. I think that they'll translate to the NFL well. He's got great quickness and initial quickness for the interior defensive line spot. He might be closer to that 300 range and more on the 298 side of things, maybe. But if he comes in over 100 and still tests, or over 300 and still tests really well, I think Byron Murphy is not a lock for the first round, but it's going to be very hard to debate him outside of the first round. Who knows where teams will have him? I haven't heard too much buzz on Byron Murphy other than when Daniel Jeremiah, I believe, put him at number 11 to the Vikings. but that was mostly just to get his name out there, and that probably moved the betting lines quite a bit. But it is what it is. Honestly, I think Byron Murphy is a great football player. I like Johnny Newton slightly better. They are two different type of players in my eyes, and I think Byron Murphy's going to be valuable at the next level as well. And as much as Sheldon Rankins has done well, or Malik Collins has really showed flashes, I think a lot of that is the scheme this year. You're seeing so much of the Will Anderson and Grenard, and it opens up opportunities for the guys on the inside and vice versa. The interior has done a good job with stunts and everything like that. So there's just a dynamic going there, and if you just add fuel to that fire with Byron Murphy, I'm just saying it can be pretty good and really dangerous, and Houston does a good job picking that up here. Now I can see the want for Troy Fautanu here, because some people really think that they need guard or interior, but they had guys that stepped up last year and did a really good job for him that I think flew under the radar. I think we'll stick off of that until I hear otherwise, or until I see otherwise, or something like that. But I think we're going to stick with Byron Murphy for me at 23. Interiors in need here, and if it's not him, again, Brian Thomas, player I really love. He's fallen a little bit here. We're going Amarius Mims here. He plays right tackle, and Terrence Steele plays right tackle for you. He's been pretty bad, especially late last year, so Dallas could possibly think about moving on from him or keeping Steele there, developing Mims as a left side guy to take over for not Teron Armstead, for Tyron Smith, while Tyler Smith can stick at guard, and then Biotish at center, or Beataz, whatever you want to say, and Zach Martin, obviously the right guard there, and then right tackle could remain Terrence Steele. But you got some work to do for the future, the trenches here on the offensive side of things, and I think Mims is a great start. This is just a massive, huge ass load of clay that you can mold. He's massive. Mims talked about as a very good prospect. I think he could obviously go higher than this, but I think Mims is injuries that can hurt him. He's not unpolished. He's playing with a lot of just talent out there. There's not a whole lot of like refinement. There's not like the best, you don't see like the best rebuttal, like his shuffle. I'm not gonna say it's messy, but there's just things, all right, that can shuffle him down just a tad, but the upside is still huge with Mims, that he's probably gonna go in the first round no matter what. But I'm still saying there's a possibility he slides a little further than people might think, and going here at 24 might actually be further back than consensus, who might have him inside the top 20 picks pretty consistently. So Mims at 24, this has already been like a weird shuffled up draft, and so I was really excited to see like how the board shuffles down. So far we're seeing a lot of like slides, we're seeing a lot of like, you know, Troy Fautanu, who's normally off the board for me at this point. I'm just saying it got really interesting down the board, and even as early as this in the first round, that it's already so different. I think that this was a really good mock draft. Kool-Aid McKinstry, you're just shoring up the back end there. All right, you got Carrington Valentine, Eric Stokes, Jair Alexander. Alexander faces some injuries. Stokes has had injury problems galore, and Carrington Valentine's a little unpolished, and I'd actually probably like to see his fiery personality try out in the slot, while Kool-Aid McKinstry, a smart, calculated, good football player, would like to play on the other side of Jair Alexander. Eric Stokes might see some play time, whether it's in the slot, changing with Valentine, 4 receiver sets, whatever it is. You're gonna see a shuffle, I would think, of the secondary and the way they play. I know Anthony Johnson has actually come down and played slot corner for us. When I say us, I'm a Packers fan here, so I mean, I'm kind of bummed to miss out here on Troy Fautanu, someone that would be fun at this pick, but I ultimately didn't end up making that pick, but it is what it is. I'm honest about this. I don't know if this is the route we go, if there's a Troy Fautanu on the board. I strongly love it, though. I like Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think that we needed that, and I don't think we can mess with the dynamic we have on the team right now, and I think a very solid, smart corner actually adds to that. As someone that's just a good football mind, I think he only adds to the dynamic, other than shuffling it up with someone else on the offensive line that might try to play 2 positions, might switch and rotate out, might be a little worse, might have a miscommunication every here and there. I think Kool-Aid McKinstry is just a solid piece that can, I guess, translate already to the NFL in a way that it wouldn't mess with what we have going in Green Bay, if that makes any sense. Brian Thomas Jr., I mentioned I loved him, and I'm not kidding. I don't know how we felt at 26, but this is what I was talking about with the skill positions early on. Brian Thomas slides to 26. This is a dream for Tampa Bay. They have Chris Godwin. They have Mike Evans. Mike Evans is definitely a vertical threat, but he might actually not be on the team next year. Godwin is a finesse finding space guy. He can play the slot. He can also play outside very well. And Trey Palmer's great and all, but he's not Brian Thomas, I'll tell you that. Thomas can get downfield, lickety split, and the corners are a little depleted at this point. I don't know where the NFL teams, obviously the hype is high on Ennis Rakestraw. I like Kamari Lasser and his conservative like play style and the safe and whatnot. I'm one of those guys. I'm not like a betting guy, so I don't really take those chances. But Ennis Rakestraw, I don't think people look at his injury history enough, and like I don't think he will end up being as high, like to the point where he could be picked inside the top 25 picks. So I think this is like the realm of possibility starts here, but I'm taking Brian Thomas 10 times out of 10 over Ennis Rakestraw for the Tampa Bay team. You're giving Baker Mayfield some fuel. Overall, in my opinion, you're improving. That you're improving more with Brian Thomas than you are with Ennis Rakestraw. Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis have shit to figure out. They got to figure it out. It's solid as that. It's as sound as that. Maybe there needs to be a little bit more attention. Maybe you need to make a staff hire that makes sure that these guys are on their game. They have the other, like, Izian, something like that. There's a fun name on the back end of that defense. I think it was playing like safety or nickel for him. You just gotta solidify some stuff. And this is a deeper draft, especially in the secondary, so they can always dip back into that pool. I can also see the argument for this is a deeper receiver class, dip into that pool later while you're still getting the top end and high end corners available here. I do think that this is a trade down spot if the right people aren't there on their board. We could see a team move up for the quarterbacks as they are remaining on the board. Now, JJ McCarthy, little disclaimer here, I probably should have put this in the video a little bit early. JJ McCarthy, by the way, getting a lot more top 10 hype right now than when I actually did this. This was Monday. All right, this was the start of Monday. All right, and this is going to be put out way later than Monday. So this was done a lot earlier. I'm sticking to it. I'm not making any major changes like putting JJ McCarthy inside the top 10. So I do apologize. And then the fact that there isn't any trades really made some of these guys fall a little bit more. I'm sure you guys can understand. So when we really see trades and stuff come into these mock drafts that I'm going to be doing on the channel, I think that's when things can get really interesting. But it has already been a fun mock with how much it's shuffled up. I don't think it's a great mock in terms of, oh, player to team. I think it's a great mock because you're shuffling it up, because we're mixing the picks. I don't think that we're seeing a lot of these so consistently, but the fact that they can still happen is something fun to play with. And that's kind of what we're doing here with F4 round mock draft. Troy Fautanu here at 27 to Arizona. Now, people might have a problem with this, but have you looked at the interior of their offensive line? They got Will Hernandez. And that's it. Harris Johnson Jr. is doing a good job at right tackle, and maybe Fautanu, you see more of a tackle. Go get your left tackle then, and boom, you have a great tackle duo for the future. But I still think DJ Humphries, Kelvin Beacham's not a guy, but he could play, you know, if DJ Humphries is still hurt by the start of next season. But even if not, Troy Fautanu fills in right, like not seamlessly, but I think he could do a good job at the NFL level at left tackle. I think he projects better as a guard, and just the pure talent and strength he plays with, I think he holds up well at guard. That's probably where you'd see him play for Arizona long term, and it would just help the Arizona offensive line so much to get as a talent like Troy Fautanu this late. Pretty crazy. Normally he's off the board for me inside the top 25 picks, I'd like to say, maybe even earlier than that consistently, but I could see I don't see him falling past 27 is basically where I'm laying the line. Troy Franklin here at number 28 for the Buffalo Bills. Now, this is a guy that can get downfield. He's going to test really well. In my opinion, I think that he's still not like, I don't think he's freaky 4.2 speed. I think he's like low 4.3s at best, but he still just does a good job using his speed. He knows how to use it. He knows where to accelerate, and to the point where he can like deceive a safety. He's got great work underneath, and he does a lot around the line of scrimmage. So he's got experience playing basically everywhere, but he's one hell of a deep threat, and I think that's what this Buffalo team needs. I think you're trying to replace Gabe Davis, and Gabe Davis did a lot of the dirty work, the unsung hero of the Buffalo Bills, and I don't think Franklin's that guy. I think you got a well-rounded receiver in Stephon Diggs, whose age might be showing a little bit more. He's been quite a diva at times, and maybe just faded away from like the team, and the, I guess in the minor situations, the little things really don't stand out to Diggs as much nowadays. As he's getting a little older, he might be a little fed up with a few things. So I'm speculating. Obviously, there's not a whole lot to support that, but some fresh young blood that can be such a high upside player in Troy Franklin, to get him at 28 is great. And I think that, I don't know how you hate this if you're the Buffalo Bills. I think if you're going receiver here, I'm passing on Keon Coleman. I'm taking Troy Franklin. Keon Coleman has too many concerns for me, and we'll see where he ends up going. but Franklin is the better receiver in my opinion, and I don't think he meshes better with Josh Allen than Keon Coleman necessarily. I think that Franklin just offers a higher upside and makes that offense a little bit better than Keon Coleman right away, and in big picture 3 years down the line, Troy Franklin can be a great player while Keon Coleman's nearly out of the league because he can't separate still. Graham Barton for me for the Detroit Lions is the pick, and again, people might see an issue with this, like, what are you doing? Take the opposite edge. All right, I'm not going to take Chop. Braylon Trice is an okay option, but a very similar player to Aiden Hutchinson. Darius Robinson, this is a little bit of a stretch for me for him. I don't think he's this high, but could still see that happening. No, I'm going to take Graham Barton, someplace that Jared Goff, through a lot of his interceptions, was under pressure over the last half of last season, and Jared Goff maybe prefers this pick obviously than a defensive end. This is, like I've mentioned, a deeper edge class. Now, not everyone can get a talented day one starter in the second round, right? But Graham Barton, to me, he's just a good interior offensive player. You need interior offensive line. I know Jonah Jackson might actually end up hitting free agency. I don't no, that could be like a year down the line. I don't remember, because I'm not like, I don't study that. I'm going to be honest. I study more of the draft prospects than I do team situation. And Graham Barton just makes more sense. Graham Glasgow has been playing for you on the interior of that line. Frank Ragnow can, you know, play center at a very high position or at a very high level. You're at a spot where I'm taking Graham Barton. I think the two most important needs are interior offensive line and edge rusher for the Detroit Lions. I don't like Chop Robinson here. I've said Braylon Trice is probably too similar of a player to Aiden Hutch, maybe just even a little bit more one-dimensional. You're not looking for the upside. Darius Robinson, there's major upside, but he's not like a bona fide edge rusher because he can slide inside a 3-tech, whatever. I like Graham Barton here. If you don't, let me know in the comments. Let me know other ways you would have gone with the way this board has fizzled out. But I think for me, this is probably just the best case scenario for him. Ennis Rakestraw Jr., Hall of Fame name, and he's going inside the top 30 at number 30 to the Baltimore Ravens, who just need corner. Now, receiver was on my mind here for them. I was probably looking at Adonai Mitchell, if any. Ladd McConkey's a lot like Zay Flowers, and player-wise, like role-wise, I should say. And Keon Coleman, I don't know. I think they've just missed on guys like Rashad Bateman. I don't know if they want to replay that. And Adonai Mitchell's a very good receiver. There's just some character and maybe effort issues you worry about there. So I don't know. I wouldn't say character issues. My bad. I would say effort issues and a little bit of inconsistencies on tape would probably hold the opinion back on him. And Ennis Rakestraw is a fiery player, someone I could see Harbaugh really liking. And Ennis Rakestraw Jr., out of Missouri, they've got a lot of dogs coming out of Missouri this year, and I think he might actually be the first Missouri player off the board in this draft. And yeah, Rakestraw, good solid player. I mentioned his injury history, and that guys that are injured for a majority of their college career probably going to translate to the NFL, but their good can be great, and the injuries are just something you have to deal with, and maybe they are a little bit more minor at the NFL level, whatever it ends up being. He needs to do a good job. They need to have that interview with him and make sure he's taking care of himself, make sure he will do the stuff required, make sure he's a hard worker. The character's obviously there. He's a high effort player. I like the fit, but I would personally have him a little further down the line than what the NFL seems to have him. But again, who am I to say, and they have a lot more information than me to say like Rakestraw. I think that the injury history is a little bit more significant than people maybe point out with him. Kamari Lassiter to make it back-to-back corners at 31. San Francisco, simple as this. They just need corner. I watch them every week, and they need corner. And one that is safe like Kamari Lassiter, he's going to do a good job, and I think he fits what they're trying to do well. And that's basically end of story. Kamari Lassiter, like I mentioned, more on the conservative side. He's a safe player, and I like it. All right, I'm just taking the best corner available here. I'm not shooting for a TJ Tampa player or even taking a chance. Kevin King is rated way too high in this, by the way. He stunk it up at the Senior Bowl. Sorry, Kalen. If you're watching, dude, my bad. No, I'm kidding. There's no way he's watching this. But if he were, I do feel bad, like, kind of slandering like that, because that's not great things to do. That's not like, you don't want to say that about a guy, but he's been very disappointing, and that's just the reality. So Kamari Lassiter to pick here at 31, and I'm not taking a chance, dude. Kalen Carson, by the way, fun tape. Keon Coleman will wrap up the first round of this 4-round mock draft, and Keon Coleman, now, he is, I mentioned, he might be out of the league because he struggles to separate. Like, he has very bad, he's not good at separating. Now, his crazy and freak athleticism might give him the tools to become a better separator. But overall, I mean, he just has some highlight catches, man. He's pretty good after the catch. He can return on like kick returns and punt returns and stuff like that. So Keon Coleman, we know he's very dynamic as an athlete, as a player, but there are just some very important things about a receiver that he doesn't really check as well as the other guys. I would think about Ladd McConkey, but he's just too similar to Rashee Rice. And then Adonai Mitchell, who people are high on, I'm not taking here. I'm taking Coleman over Adonai at this spot. And Coleman, the freak athlete he is, the speed to get downfield, the jump ball ability is too enticing for the Kansas City Chiefs at 32 for me than any other player. Maybe Adonai Mitchell has a small argument here. I think 8 times out of 10, we'll say 80% of the time, I'm taking Coleman over Adonai in this spot for the Kansas City Chiefs right away. Although Adonai has some great tape and he looks good, but like I mentioned, the issues and the tempers already flare with the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, they have very passionate players, and that's not a bad thing. There's a line, and Keon Coleman better suits to fill within the lines here for the Kansas City Chiefs to close out the first round. Coleman is a great player and overall just an amazing athlete. Now, will he translate every little bit of that athleticism to the league? Probably. Will he use them to become the best he can be in the NFL? He might try. He might not have that work effort. I don't know much about the character of Keon Coleman. I haven't dove too deep into him. I think I watched 4 or 5 games of tape on him, and he's been solid for me. I don't think his film grades over the top. I don't think he's an amazing guy, but 32, good spot. Ladd McConkey, the pick for me here at number 33. He is a good separator, as you just need to get open and catch the football. If you are a wide receiver, and it helps out Bryce Young tremendously if you can do that underneath, give him that not check down, but give him a good second read. I think that's what you're looking for here. Mingo on a deep shot, and like just a vertical route, that's your number one. You want to click off of that, and then boom, McConkey's just flying across your face wide open, or he's sitting in his zone wide open. I think those two would have great chemistry, and I think that's just the fit, the dream fit, actually. When you look at the Carolina Panthers, what do they need to make Bryce Young better? It's a lot of support, and McConkey does more than you know, more than the offensive line probably would right away, or any offensive lineman available. Now, I might want to, choke on my words here if it was like, if one of these players end up being like a Hall of Fame offensive lineman, right? But hindsight aside, when you're looking at it right now, I think Ladd McConkey helps Bryce Young more than any other player on the board right now, which might be a little crazy. I think Adonai Mitchell offers a little bit more of that, F it, he's down there somewhere type of target. But Ladd McConkey, technically sound, great receiver. I wouldn't be so surprised if he ends up being one of the better wide receivers in this draft class, or out of this draft class, just a little less upside than some of the other guys that were taken above him. Braylon Trice off the board for me here, the Washington edge rusher. I could not wait to push him off any further. And yes, you drafted Keon White, sure. Braylon Trice could even slide to your 3-4 defensive end, where he's a little further inside. Now, I would never put him at a defensive tackle. Like, I would never put him in there. I think he's better from like way out wide, even like at what is it, like a 5-5? I don't know the alignments. Listen guys, as much as I like to sit here and say I'm great at this, I don't even know if I am. This is my first year doing a draft process so in depth. So I do apologize if I am not so great at this. But Braylon Trice, 34. You're just not going to find a better football player right now than not JJ McCarthy. I just started reading JJ McCarthy's name. Braylon Trice. All right, Braylon Trice. We're moving on. All right, we're just moving on. TJ Tampa is going to be the pick here for me. Now, he's a little bit lower on this board on the NFL mock draft database simulator.com or whatever. NFLmockdraftdatabase.com/mock draft simulator. That's the correct address there. But I do think he actually has a chance to slip into the first round if he tests really well, or like as good as I really want him to. I wouldn't say expect, because I still expect him to be like a 4.4 guy, but he's got great size at like 6. He'd probably be like 6'1", 200, and that's still great, or 6'1", 195, and that's still amazing, especially in this class where we're seeing a lot of the slim build. But Tampa, solid corner, a lot of intangibles, a lot of great traits, good athleticism, had glimpses of greatness over the course of this last college season. I haven't watched like all of his tape, or I wouldn't say, I watched like a sliver of his tape, I'll tell you that. But Tampa, high upside, guys like him at the top, and or I guess like the experts, I guess they don't seem to be like, oh, Quinyon Mitchell high on him or Ennis Rakestraw high, but I still think people that generally know what they're talking about, they're a little higher on TJ Tampa. And when I read his mock draft, or not his mock draft, when I read his draft profile like way back, way back, then I was really happy to, and kind of confused why he wasn't a little bit higher. But yeah, I've liked Tampa since like the first glimpse, I guess, and I would really like to see him go either high second or even late first as the ultimate ceiling for him in terms of draft position. Patrick Paul, for me, might be a little bit of an upset considering the guys on the board, but Morgan was inconsistent as all could be at the Senior Bowl, showed a lot of weakness. Now, that doesn't take away from everything you saw on tape. Like, you still obviously saw it through however many games of Jordan Morgan. Kingsley Suamataia, I'm not saying he's a bad player. Patrick Paul is just good in my eyes. I don't get where the opinion falls off on him. He's closer to, like, I think he's 6'7", like 330, massive human being. He's got great, like, he moves really well for a man his size. Patrick Paul, man, I'm telling you right now, maybe this is a bit high, but I could easily see him going inside the top 40 picks, especially with Washington picking at the 40th overall pick again. Listen, people will probably hate me taking him over Morgan, over Kingsley Suamataia, but when it comes to the perspective of the NFL, look at it from an NFL like lens, I guess, right? How is Patrick Paul, maybe not Kingsley Suamataia, how is he, like, I'd say significantly worse or looked at significantly lower than Jordan Morgan, who maybe lacks a little bit of size, or Kingsley Suamataia, who is severely, not unpolished, but he's just really young. He's a sophomore, I believe. So they're giving you that information. Patrick Paul, like, I'm going to take him here. I probably will end up like shying away and taking him a little later and kind of listening to the more general consensus than what I think in a little bit, like maybe over the next like 2 second round mocks or whatever. Who knows where I'll have Patrick Paul, but I can guarantee you something. He will always be up there with Jordan Morgan for me until the actual draft comes along and we see what type of players these guys are. Chris Jenkins is the pick for me here. I can get the Jatavion Sanders and stuff like that, and he's only recently been getting the crazy almost first round hype, right? But like I mentioned, this was done a while ago and I'm still sticking to this. Now, if you're looking to stop the run, you're like, why the hell didn't you go T'Vondre Sweat? I think T'Vondre, as good of a football player as he is, he's just gonna have very limited snaps, and that's not what the Chargers need right now. And Harbaugh connections, by the way. Just saying. So Chris Jenkins comes in as a senior, so spent a lot of, like, I don't know if he's a transfer or anything, most likely he is, but spent probably a little bit more time with Coach Harbaugh over there at Michigan, and then boom, get drafted here early on in the second round. He's just a good defensive lineman. We've been talking about it being a need for them through the course of however long it's been. I think the last like 5 years. They've needed to stop the run. They've been pretty bad against it, and Chris Jenkins does a good job of just a little bit of everything at the interior defensive line with some pretty good upside. Now, he is a little bit older, so I don't know where that kind of ranks him up, because I know people don't really like that as much, but I don't think it matters as much. Darius Robinson here for me for the Tennessee Titans at number 38. The edge rusher out of Mizzou, a Senior Bowl standout, someone that can win inside and outside with power and with speed and power on the same rep. It's crazy. The player that Darius Robinson is, right? Like, you're like, this is a first round guy for sure. Maybe I can actually see it, right? That's very plausible, right? Especially in the NFL's eyes. But if you don't show anything reasonable or worthy of a first round pick, and then you get up to the Senior Bowl, absolutely light it up, I think that's where the opinions hinder. I think that's where we're looking at like is he actually a first round player? Like, I think that's where the questions develop. I don't think like the guy's film grades go completely out the window if he just has a good Senior Bowl. So that's kind of where that's discounted, and rightfully so. I feel the same way. And Robinson is probably the healthiest 586 pounds that I've ever seen. He looks, dude, he's holy crap, by the way. Like that is crazy. That 286 pound frame, I would guess around 265, 270. So he's got a very nice stature and build to him. like I mentioned, quickness and power, like they're both his game. Like he's just good. And it's hard to see like good football players and be like, we're going to pass on him for someone with better traits. Now, when it comes to a mock draft scenario here, there is a Chop Robinson on the board, and I'm taking another D Robinson here. This is Chop, but this is, I think his name is like Damien, something like that. Darius ends up going because I think he's actually already a little bit more refined. He's got the NFL ready, I guess, moves more than Chop Robinson, who just is straight athleticism, and he'll fall down the board for me quite a bit. And this is JJ McCarthy for me at the 39th pick, obviously, here for the Giants. Now, considering their situation right now, I think they do one of two things. That's like trade up, have Daniel Jones either on the roster or cut him, whatever you're like, whatever you're trying to solve there after free agency or whatever it is. After you draft a quarterback, then that's when you start to think about the solution to get Daniel Jones away from like off the books, I guess, right? So JJ McCarthy, who would be picked here at 39. I think like you can't rely on him being here at 39 or relying anything to happen through the draft. Draft is a total crapshoot when it comes to like what you think can happen versus what actually happens. So you can't have like a preconceived mindset where it's like, okay, we're getting McCarthy in the draft, let's move on from Jones or whatever. So I think you go into next season, or I guess into this offseason, thinking, all right, we have Daniel Jones. If we can improve on him in the draft, we're going to take that shot. And here at 39, the cards have aligned. JJ McCarthy is here. I think he's going a lot earlier than this now. So after this week of hype and whatever, I'll listen to the hype. I'll listen to the JJ McCarthy takes that are going around right now, and I'll take him a little bit higher in future mocks. But in this situation where he did fall, I don't think that there's a reason you don't take him here if you're the Giants. If you're looking to, I guess, yeah, you're shooting for the stars. And what did Brian Dable do with Josh Allen, right? So we'll have to see, and we'll see what type of player McCarthy comes out and looks like. There's a chance that he is slightly worse than Daniel Jones, but kind of that same like just be a game manager right away like type of player, where Jones was a distributor. He's not like your top 10 quarterback in the NFL. He's a distributor. He just gets it to the playmakers on time. He gets the he reads his books, and he playbook to be specific, if you guys didn't get that. I think McCarthy would come in and be similar, and we could even see him sitting behind Daniel Jones if Daniel Jones has a good enough like camp or whatever. This is a good scenario for the Giants, in my opinion. Commanders, Chris Braswell will be the pick here. And at 40, yes, Chop Robinson is still on the board. It's going to continue that way. But Braswell offers some high upside. Now, I think he is a senior at Alabama, and it could even be like a redshirt senior. So I don't know exactly, but older player, played with some great players over his course of time with the Alabama team. Dallas Turner obviously on the other side of him, and Will Anderson really stand out as the two, and those three are apparently very close. They're in a group chat. They talk about football and what they could do better and stuff like that. And so that's a fun way to look at it, as Braswell will always keep competing with like NFL caliber talent. I like it. And he wasn't that great at the Senior Bowl, but I think he's still a good player. I think the tape is really good. He's a power rusher. He'll go straight through you, but he can also have that quick first step to get outside, threaten that at least. Like, he's got some moves. He's got the tools, I guess, right? So that's what you're looking for at pass rusher. Now, if you're relying straightly on upside, which I really was thinking about Chop Robinson here, I'll be honest. So I was thinking, okay, Washington, you're not in a rebuild, right? But you could use some of the best play, but you did just trade away Chase Young and Montez Sweat, and so you actually need edge, like you need a presence, right? So you're gonna go with someone with a high enough floor, with a good enough ceiling, other than just like a really low floor with an outrageous ceiling in Chop Robinson, right? So that is kind of where that conversation stacked up in my brain, right? But Chop Robinson, it wouldn't be surprising to me if he's off the board well before pick 40, or if he comes off the board over Chris Braswell at pick 40 or at 35, I believe, where I took Patrick Paul earlier for him. It all just comes down to how the NFL teams see it, and I don't know. So we'll just kind of move on with our day. Packers are going to go with Jordan Morgan. Now, I definitely was thinking about Kingsley Suamataia, because we like to develop the guys. We saw Rasheed Walker over the last year. Like, why are you drafting another left tackle? Bakhtiari is not going to be a thing forever, and we have to assume that it's going to be Bakhtiari, Rasheed Walker on the left side. Right side would be Zach Tom, and then we have Runyon, Myers, and obviously Nijman might pop up in there if his contract's not gone. And then we have another guy. I don't know how I'm blanking on this, but got to look at it in a way where you can just develop him as he could even come in and play guard. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Jordan Morgan, he might actually be a better guard than tackle. I think he's like a consensus tackle. And if we could develop him into being better than Rasheed Walker slides into guard, or whatever the case scenario is, we're just adding to the line. And this is a guy that doesn't have to start right away. This is a guy that can learn from Bakhtiari. This is a guy that doesn't mess with, like I mentioned earlier, with the dynamic of the team right now. I don't think he comes in and he becomes a major break or I guess a win or lose type of position, where Rasheed Walker was unfortunately dealt the hand with Bakhtiari out that he had to start, and he wasn't that great. He was not a liability, but he was not amazing on the left side by any stretch of the imagination earlier on this year. And now by the end of the season, he was a lot better. And I don't know if that's due to Jordan Love's play. I don't know what that's due to, right? But I'm basically, it's hard to justify this pick, but it makes sense in my brain. It might not in yours. And honestly, I just look at the best way to say it is we're going to develop a good offensive lineman to play good football. If you have a problem with that, I don't get it. Michael Penix Jr. I think he's actually probably more pro ready than a JJ McCarthy. I wouldn't say a Bo Nix. I'd say that they're pretty right 1 and 2. And then, yeah, I'd say that he's just a little bit more pro ready than JJ McCarthy. Are you moving on from Kirk? On one hand, you could. On the other, like, I don't know what they're doing. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, you're a quarterback needy team. And that's just what it comes down to. That's the final conclusion already. Is you're a quarterback needing team, because if Kirk Cousins is your quarterback, then yeah, you probably want a JJ McCarthy with his age, so Michael Penix isn't a 25-year-old first-year starter or whatever. So Michael Penix might come in, might start right away, whatever the scenario is. I think it's a good one that the Minnesota Vikings have, because at 42, if you're getting a quarterback like Michael Penix Jr., who, like we mentioned, most likely slides because of his medical history. His injury history is crazy, by the way. I think he has like 4 season enders, both ACLs, and then I think both shoulders, or it might be been the same ACL twice and then different shoulders, and then obviously suffered that rib injury against Texas, I believe. So, or no, that was his really good game, was against Texas. So it was in the national championship against the Michigan Wolverines, right? So all that aside, Michael Penix, another guy that can go way higher than this. It was just kind of like I mentioned, we saw some of these guys slip and fall, and a lot of them were the quarterback class with McCarthy and Penix. The rest generally flew off in the top 8 picks. So it is what it is. I don't know where everyone else stands on Michael Penix and him going to the Minnesota Vikings. It might just make less sense than like a JJ McCarthy. You might just want to pass here on this and go with a interior defensive lineman like T'Vondre Sweat. But you already have Harrison Phillips there. Like, there's just conversations to be had with this pick, and I think that this is just one outcome that could possibly happen. Jonah Ellis here at 43. So Ellis comes off the board. He's more of a upside guy as well. Now I could see the Chop Robinson here again, and Raheem Morris is your new head coach, and so he's more of that defensive minded guy. But I'm going Jonah Ellis here. To me, he's a great player. I don't see where, okay, like, yes, you could prefer Chop. I'm really not a Chop guy, and I don't think that the NFL will be significantly higher on him than they are with, like, than I am. And there's a lot of people really low on Chop Robinson. I could see that. And there hasn't been any like, oh, but Chop's still going in the first round. I haven't watched any of that. I haven't seen any of that. But Ellis off the board to me, Utah Ute. He is gonna be closer to 250 than people like. I think if he comes in around 255, that'd be tremendous. That'd be great for Ellis. That might stamp his name up there inside the top, you know, of the edge rushing list here. Maybe above Adisa Isaac and definitely above Chop Robinson. But this is a guy that plays with, I'd say, a really good motor. He's got great genetics when it comes to the football world. Ellis is a longer player. He seems a little bit longer on tape. Like, he's just got the long arms. He's got the power. Now, he was really non-existent until this year, and then he comes out and just like has great production overall. So Ellis kind of a sleeper pick here, and people might not like it, but I don't care. I mean, Ellis to me makes sense. Mikey Sainris still off the board at 44. Might be a little early for some, but not for me. This is another guy that is just Raiders culture written all over him. Sainris still is a guy, all right? This guy is a slot corner, basically, but he's not a safety. I would never play him as safety, actually. I think he's a little bit too small for me to play safety, but who knows? NFL's adapting differently this year, or these days. We'll see. Sanders still probably a slot corner. Now that works with the guys on roster. In my opinion, Nate Hobbs was, I think, a good nickel for him, but you put Nate Hobbs, Jack Jones outside, Sanders still on the inside, and Mikey Sanders still is a leader. This is I think a 4-year senior at Michigan, or senior at Michigan. Did a good job like leading that team, did a good job just getting all over the place, making plays on the ball as a tackler, as a defensive back, standing at closer to 5'8" area. Like, he was so much better than you'd think, like looking at like a draft profile or even his presence anywhere. Like, if he had a bad game, you're like, oh, that's expected. Like, so those that just hate on small players, like, there's Tank Dell as evidence. They work out and they can. And Sanders still, to me, he fits so well at this spot. They need corner, I guess, stability in the back end overall, instead of just like they need corner. So 44, Las Vegas. The pick for me is Mikey Sanders still. Here is Chop Robinson off the board at 45 for me. The New Orleans Saints have not been, or I guess they have never shied away from a project at the edge position. We'll say that. Peyton Turner comes to mind just most recently, and they've done a good job maybe developing a few more. Carl Granderson was really good this last year, and Isaiah Foskey is on roster. I do understand that, but I don't think you have Carl Granderson, Isaiah Foskey, and say, boom, that's it. That's our edge of the future. That's like, that is our position room. We're cool with that for the next 6 years, all right? I think you got to bring in Chop Robinson. One, he doesn't have to play right away a whole lot, and two, he has Cam Jordan to learn from, and he has Carl Granderson, who wasn't so good and then took that step. You have a guy that's done it before, and you have a great, I think, vocal leader in Cam Jordan. So I'm more than okay with Chop Robinson going this late, and especially if it's at this spot to the Saints. It just made a lot of sense in my mind when I started thinking about their past and what they've done and what they haven't, I guess, and what they have on roster that could help and maybe fuel the, I don't want to say fuel the fire. I've already used that too much in this video. So I'd say add to the, I don't know, just give Chop Robinson a good chance, I guess. That's what you're really looking for. And with a guy like Chop Robinson, who's just pure athlete, so twitchy, I don't know if he falls this late. He's got traits. So we talk about it. He can go higher for sure. He can be a first-round pick for all I know. This is the way I'm seeing him right now, and if he falls to 45, this is a great case scenario for the Saints. JT Sanders, after passing on Brock Bowers in the first round, you're going to go Jatavian Sanders here. Now, people are getting a lot higher on him than I thought. I am actually lower on him than I thought I'd be. I could pull up my notes right now and tell you about a few things that I'm probably wrong about, but this guy's an athlete. He's good, but his film grade, like I mentioned, wasn't good. I think actually Cade Stover graded out better than him through film, but when it comes to prospect, I would still say Sanders ranks above and is at number 2, but not as close to Bowers as some people are making it seem. There are a lot of JT Sanders lovers out there, and I've even seen him in the first round, which not on board with at all, ever. I don't think I'll ever be right here, but I don't know. People like him, people don't. People look at people differently, right? So it kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, this is a tight end needy team. Okay, JT's on the board and he's an athlete. Oh, he has traits. Kind of went on. It kind of resonated in my brain that he could easily go here, and I think that the Indianapolis Colts are looking to add playmakers alongside Anthony Richardson to make his development maybe a little bit easier, a little bit more crystal clear, if you will, giving him a better chance. That is the pick here for me at 46. Makes sense to me, and let me know if it makes sense to you or if you think he should go higher or lower, because I really don't know where to stand on JT Sanders right now. Tyler Nubin to the Giants here. I don't know how much Giants fans are going to love or hate this. I'm pretty sure hate. It sucks to get a safety, but does it? I mean, when you look at back-end play, I think Dane Belton's one of their starting safeties right now, and Xavier McKinney, I know he's had injuries in the past. I don't know if he's suffered any in the last year or so, but that's also still a question mark. But you're getting a good safety. It's not like these safeties are mediocre and you just have to take them to I guess, fill an okay position. I think safeties are still very important, and especially in today's game where you're seeing so much, I guess, unique play by everyone. Kind of Derwin James like comes to mind when you think of like a versatile safety. I think not Nubin's the same type of player, but I think that safety is just being undervalued right now, and people just think it's such a boring pick. But the positional value is still there. I think Nubin's a good enough player that it makes sense inside the top 50. Whether or not either of these safeties, Kinchins or Nubin, goes in the top 50 might be a little bit of a crapshoot. I don't know. I think Nubin's actually the better player out of the both of them. I don't really know. I don't have a good sense or read on the safety class yet. From what I've seen, I like Nubin from a total perspective, like as an overall player, and that just was what the Giants need. Now, Giants fans probably not happy with me at all right now. Kingsley Suamataia is on the board. I'm not moving on from Evan Neal if I'm the Giants. After watching what the heck happened to Andrew Thomas, I think not only would it be crazy, but it was also the... And you kind of have to say this if you're Joe Schoen, but Joe Schoen, I think, said like they're sticking with Evan Neal. He didn't say it like quite as bold as that. I think it was just a like, yeah, we want to move forward. We know what development looks like. We've seen, like, you know, we've seen it before, and we think Evan Neal still has it. We didn't draft him, and we're going to move on from him in a year. So I'm taking Nubin here. Like it or hate it, and let me know how you feel about it. Zach Frazier, possibly one of the better values so far for the Jacksonville Jaguars, or I guess for the draft here for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Frazier's a talented player, and people will end up really liking him, and I could see why. I watched the West Virginia game. I can't remember if it was for Zach Frazier specifically, but it was a while ago. I can't think of any other West Virginia player it would be in this class. So, yeah, I'm going to say Zach Frazier here, right? So, he goes inside the top 50, and I think that that's a pretty gimme. Like, I think he can actually go a little bit earlier than this, too. But, yeah, Frazier, West Virginia center. I think, like, he's just been a bona fide center. I like the pick. They need center. And then after that, I mean, Cleveland on one side. Anton Harrison playing right tackle. And then who do they have at left tackle? It's Cam Robinson at left tackle. And then I forgot who the other guard was, but it's good. They have a good offensive line, and adding Zach Frazier makes it way better, in my opinion. Kingsley Suamataia out of BYU is going to be the pick for me for the pick at 49 for the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm starting to fumble on my words. I've been talking for a very long time now. But we are seeing the Cincinnati Bengals, like, and something I wanted to kind of shout this out early. Suamataia has right tackle versatility. He spent all of last year playing right tackle, only moved over to left tackle this last year, and still did a good job. So he is a sophomore, I believe, from what I saw. Now, it could be a redshirt sophomore, which is probably the most likely, you know, thing for Suamataia, but comes out as a younger prospect, if you will, and I think he's got a good upside, but the floor is a pretty low floor. And if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, like, can you take that guy and, like, just let him play on the right side and let him figure it out? No. Burrow has been way too fragile to do that. So maybe you shy towards a... Never mind. Nobody else in this draft, I'll tell you that. Maybe you look at free agency, you get a guy like... Maybe like a Donovan Smith for the Chiefs this last year. Did an okay job, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been. Wanya Morris is someone that kind of comes into mind when it's kind of same position here. Suamataia at 49... To me, it's well worth the pick. And if he actually slid to Philly, that would have been... I didn't even think about that. Holy... Yeah, that could have been absolute gold mine for Philadelphia. They ended up going Adonai Mitchell for me. They just need another receiver. And I could see the argument where, like, they need, like, a speed guy. Like, Xavier Worthy might have been the better pick. But it's just not going to get better than Adonai Mitchell. And for him to be picked inside the top 50, very expected. But at 50... not expected. I think people want him to go very early in the second round, and he has unfortunately slidden way back here for me in the second round. So this is more middle of the second round area, and people like to see him off the board way higher. But again, these guys just kind of fell for me. The way that the pieces fell into place, it just kind of didn't include skilled players. I don't know. Some of them, like Xavier Legette here, I mean, like, there are just players that ended up falling down the board for whatever reason, right? So Adonai Mitchell, refined receiver, great smooth for 6'4 or 6'3, whatever he measures in at. He's a good player. Should be around that 200 mark, 190, something like that. Mitchell is, I don't know if we can call him like a a better floor than you know, maybe Lad McConkey's got a good floor. I don't know. The receivers that went ahead of him, you might be shooting for upside, but Adonai Mitchell has a great floor and great upside, and that's one of the reasons people think he should go higher. But I mentioned his concerns earlier, and I still stick with that, and he ended up just sliding. And yes, I'd probably take him a little bit earlier than this if I was very mindful of, like, Adonai Mitchell needs to get off the board. I'd probably find a spot before this to get him off the board, but just falls to Philadelphia at 50, who gets a very solid player, product, and receiver at 50. Kinchins for the Steelers. Like it or hate it, Steelers fans, you're getting a safety. Another one where I feel like fan bases really don't like watching their team get a safety. You know, that's boring, right? But you're getting a good player, DeMonte KZ, and the other guy that plays for you in that secondary as a safety. If you just gave me a year, I think I can think about it, but unfortunately we don't have a year. It's Jaron Curse, I think, right? I don't know. You got two older guys, two guys that are like they fill your spot, right? They fill the position, but they had to go out and get Eric Rowe. He actually didn't play too bad, but Kinchins just comes in. He's a better player. He's good, young, upside player. I mean, solidifies a spot in the secondary. Kieran Mega G here, or Mega J. I don't know. I'm not Kieran here, so it could be Kyron, it could be Kieran, but I'm gonna say Kieran Mega G. Not opposed to this pick. I really like him. He's very smart, and this is another guy, like, if he fell to the Philadelphia Eagles, it would have been fun, but whatever. They need good players. He's a good player. He's very smart, obviously going to Yale. But not only that, he puts in the effort. He has shown improvement. He is a very attention to detail. He's a football player. Didn't play against, like, obviously the greatest. I think he's actually in, like, I don't think he's in the FBS, right? So Omega G has the exceptions to be a top 55, 52 player, obviously, here. And Omega G, go look him up, whatever. I haven't got a great read on the tackle class either, at least that far down, but I could tell you about, like, some of the guys above him, and even Blake Fisher, Christian Jones. I could tell you more about him than Kyron Omega G or Kieran. Just go look him up if you really want to, if you want to spend the time. Edgerrin Cooper, I mean, Zach Cunningham and Shaq Leonard are your guys right now. Leonard, injury concerns. Cunningham, old concerns. He's just a little bit on the older side. Now, Cooper can fly around that Texas A&M defense, and did at times this year, and just really was like a nobody. I wouldn't say nobody, all right, but he wasn't like on anyone's radar per se, and ends up being linebacker 1 off the board here. Now, people like Junior Colson. I'm hearing a lot of, let's go look at the linebacker class. Peyton Wilson and Trotter's kind of fallen in the general perspective, I think, and so people are just a little lower on everybody else. And this is kind of a wide open linebacker class. I think Edgerrin Cooper's still the guy, in my opinion. I think he's done a good enough job putting and stamping his name there. I think he's obviously pretty good, exceptional, and he's inside the top 55. And I don't think a linebacker is worthy of, like, even going inside the top half of the first round or whatever, or the second round. I think Edgerrin Cooper's good value here at 53. T'Vondre Sweat will be the pick for me here for the Cleveland Browns. Now, this is a good football player. There is an exception here for his, like, size. Like, this guy is, we're talking 380 plus. Like, you got to step on the scale when you go to the Senior Bowl. I think that it's like he's made it worse for himself, and it could have been his agent or something telling him not to weigh in at the Senior Bowl. But when people look at him, they're like, that's a 360 plus pound monster at Texas. He goes to the Senior Bowl, doesn't weigh in, and people are saying that's a 380 plus pound monster, right? So you've made it worse for yourself if you're trying to, like, maybe look lighter or whatever, and maybe he actually does weigh 385 plus pounds, right? Maybe that's the case, but step on a scale, young man. Like, I don't know. I kind of get your own opinions there on that, and I'm sure teams have. I mean, teams are not meticulous, but they're very, like, with how they think things, and then how you're going to interview the guy changes. We'll see where Sweat's, like, general read is, but at the NFL level, he's probably not going to play a whole lot of snaps. There's probably going to be, like, a whole lot of first and second downs, and after that, he might have to step off the field. All right, like, unless it's like 3rd and 1, maybe like 3rd and shorts. First downs, he'll be on a little bit. Second downs, depending on the scenario, maybe not. Like, he's a good football player, but you have to accept the fact he's not going to be on the field all the time, and that isn't as valuable as a good football player that's going to be on the field all the damn time, making impact play after impact play with a high motor, great effort, great stamina. Like, he's just not that type of guy. So fell down the board maybe a little bit further than he should have, but still just placing in here at the 54th pick is not bad. And I think that the Cleveland Browns could use somebody on the other side like Dalvin Tomlinson, who's actually playing pretty good football at the end of this year. Zadarius Smith's going to be gone, so you're going to lose some reinforcements there on the defensive line in general. Maybe you work good there this last year, and you're just looking to get like a situational run defender and Tavondre Sweat that can also get to the pass. Like, he's so good, like I said, but you just have to accept the fact he's not going to play as much. Adisa Isaac off the board at number 55, edge rusher out of Penn State. We talked about Chop Robinson, his teammate, earlier. Now, this is a little bit of an older guy. He's a senior. He is, I'd say, not as much of an athlete, but he's got some get up to him. And he was at the Senior Bowl, and I think he didn't stand out as much in the one-on-ones as he did on the team events. Like, he had, like, not the team event, the team game, but the team drills, where there was like the scrimmage and like the 11-on-11 or whatever. So it's not like he totally like didn't show up to the Senior Bowl, but I expected a little more from him. But Adisa Isaac, after he was like projected to be a 5th to 7th round guy, maybe even a UDFA, like, he's had himself a great rise over this past year at Penn State. He's got himself into conversations right now to be a good edge rusher and maybe even be picked inside the top 50 if teams like him enough and if they think he's traitsy enough. But I did mention he's a little bit older and he's really only stood out this year. So Adisa, like, or Adisa or Adisa, I don't know which one it is, but I'm gonna call him Adisa Isaac. I think this is not an overdraft, but Miami needs an edge rusher. Seeing what happened to them with Phillips and Bradley Chubb and their injury heading into the playoffs, it was not great. And then Van Ginkel went down. Like, they were really depleted at that point. So Adisa will make sure that probably doesn't happen again. Situational pass rusher right away that could step up, be great. And you know, if you want speed sets or you have like two very big tackles on the other side of Phillips and Adisa, and you're like, hey, let's shoot for the moon here. Let's put Adisa Isaac and Phillips on the field against two bigger tackles that might struggle against speed. It's going to be hell for that quarterback. So that's good. It's a good pick. And like I mentioned, situational right away, and then could step into bigger roles if need be. It's going to be Xavier Legette here for me for the Cowboys at 56. Now, Legette is another like just physical specimen, right? Out of South Carolina. He's got himself a fun story attached to him. And this is his senior year, crushed it over the offseason, mainly was like a special teams guy for the South Carolina Gamecocks. Heading into this offseason, he had such a good offseason. And so they're like, okay, this guy has to get a little bit more play time. And I mean, he stands at 6'1", 223, which people are kind of like, people are a little lower on him because he didn't weigh in at 6'3", 230, which I think is a little ridiculous. So like, I hope that the value of Legette goes up a little bit more than people have right now, but whatever. He comes in and Antoine Wells goes down, or Antwain Wells, the other South Carolina receiver, is supposed to be the #1 guy. Legette steps up and puts like 150 plus up in his first game and shows that, I mean, he's very good vertically. I think he's a bit unpolished, but that comes with time playing the position, and he hasn't done it. And just overall, he is a hard worker, first one in the building, first one out, and that is no there's no exaggeration there. He is a very hard worker. He will play every snap, including special teams, if you ask him to. He's a good player. Like, he's a good football player, and he's a good person and likes to put in the work ethic's amazing. Like, you just, the intangibles with Legette stack up, and it's just hard to see him this far down the board. But I guess there is just kind of the questions around him that outweigh some of the intangibles, and to still be a player going inside the top 56 picks is still very good. But I could realistically see him going a lot higher. He just falls to 56, and this is a player I'm not exactly like, I'm not, you know, raving or super high on Legette compared to the general consensus. I just really like, I like what could be. I like the blueprint here in Legette. Christian Haynes will be the pick for me at 57 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Talk about a guy that, well, we just want to help Baker even more. You just got Brian Thomas in the first round. Let's get Christian Haynes in the second. Let's solidify that offensive line. That way it's very solid, because that way you have the Luke Gadecki, who is playing left tackle and playing it very well, or considered to like expectations or where they were at. Tristan Wirfs, who's playing, I think Wirfs was actually on the left side. Gadecki on the right. and then you had a pretty solid interior offensive line already, but you're kind of missing out on that guard. And then Christian Haynes comes in. I like him more than most interior offensive linemen in this class. I think Puny, he's actually a tackle. Like, he could be moved around. He's a fun player, but we'll talk about him soon. Actually, the way he played at the Senior Bowl really gave me like what to watch, like a preview to watching his tape. And then once I watched his tape, it didn't disappoint. So UConn's Christian Haynes at 57, solidifying another spot on the Tampa Bay offensive line. Now I could say like, oh, we need edge. All right, what edge do you want here? Dorless is not really an edge, and Marshawn Nealon, probably not a top 60 player. Like, possibly could be for you, but I don't know if your board falls that way. Austin Booker's got some upside, but you know, whatever. My favorite player in this whole damn draft, give me Marquise, or what is his name? Like, yeah, I think it was Marquise Irving. Yeah, it's Marquise Irving, but his name's Bucky Irving. All right, get that shit straight. Bucky Irving is my favorite player in this class. He is my running back one, not by far. He's not like margins above. He's not like a first round grade for me, right? But go watch the tape. You're seeing some of it right now, but oh my God. I don't get where the consensus is on this guy, like how low it is. Like, I'm starting to finally hear about people talking and evaluating running backs. Daniel Jeremiah says he likes him, but probably not his running back one. God damn, he's fun to watch. He's so very good as a running back. Like, he's a running back. He might be a little undersized. He might do a few things that like knock his film grade. Like, I think his film grade was only, so I basically do it to the point where they're rated out of 120. I gave him like 6 different categories, whatever it is, right? So say out of 120, I think Marquise was closer to like 95, something like that. So he's up there. And then Trey Benson or Jonathan Brooks only came at like a 91. So he's not, like I said, he's not marginally out in front of everybody else. He is just so much like better in my eyes. And I think he's still my running back one. Like, he's so great and physical for his size, along with his quick burst, initial quickness, the lateral ability he has, like movement wise. Bucky Irving, man, my opinion is high on him. And yeah, favoritism maybe a little bit as a Green Bay fan. I think that this could be a running back here. I think this is your first like running back could go spot for the Packers to get like someone I think is showing similarities to Aaron Jones in terms of like just a bruiser with a little bit smaller and very good, like all the way around through and through as a mover. Give him an offseason with Aaron Jones. A year later after this, like 2 years down the road, Irving is in a great situation because we'd have to assume Jones either gone via retirement or free agency. AJ Dillon probably getting rid of this season or this upcoming season or off season. I hope so. And Marquise Irving, Bucky Irving, just give him the damn ball. He's so good. Jalen Polk off the board at 59 for the Houston Texans. We're skipping out on Texas Xavier Worthy, who's fallen so far down. It's my bad, right? Like, he needed to probably go earlier. Like, these guys, we're getting to pick 59. He's probably like a top 45 pick. Walker needs to be way higher than now. Like, he should probably be picked in front of Polk. Whatever. Like I mentioned, these guys just ended up falling. So we're just kind of dealing with that right now. But Houston gets Jalen Polk, who can go up and get it. Now, he's not quite Nico Collins, but those two share similarities. Tank Dell's a very different player, so I was thinking, like, no, we're not going to put Xavier Worthy here. Too small, too much like Tank Dell. So we're going to give Polk to the Houston Texans, and we did just that. And I think as a good player to team fit, he did a good job on the other side of Roma Dunze, so I think he's kind of putting himself back into that same situation where he's going to be playing next to Nico Collins, and then he'll have like a Jalen McMillan type in Tank Dell. Not close to the same players, right? Tank Dell is obviously very different from Jalen McMillan, but in terms of role-wise, I think Polk is just a number 2. A very easy pick for me. I'm going Braden Fisk here at 60. It might look like an overdraft on mock draft database here, but they have him significantly lower than I would. So Fisk is an overall great player. His quickness is insane. Toughness is through the roof. Motor runs hot. I mean, Fisk is everything you ask for, in my opinion, at the interior defensive line other than size, but he's faced it, and let's be honest, I think that there are a lot of good undersized players in the league nowadays. It's just a thing. And I think Fisk is no different. I don't think he's an outlier of any sort. I think that he's just a good player that might have a little bit of he might be a little underweight for the required position or whatever. So we're seeing Ed Oliver already there, who's undersized, and it's kind of similar to Fisk. And that's where, like, the only reason I might, like, consider or might have considered Leonard Williams or Leonard Taylor, not Williams, over, or you mean even go get Leonard Williams out in free agency. It's going to be significantly more expensive than this. Fisk is a good player. It's an interior player, and Buffalo needs interior. Kind of gave you his player description, similarities to Ed Oliver there, who they have developed in Buffalo. Do you want two of the same player? I don't think they're the exact same player. But when you think about it, they share some simulators too. Talked about it with Polk and Collins. I think it's not the same situation here. I think Fisk is actually better against the run than Oliver, and I'm excited to dive into even more Fisk tape because I've watched, I wouldn't say very little, but I've watched like a smaller sample size for most of these defensive guys. We're dipping back into the interior pool and we're taking Dwayne Carter, and you're like, whoa, that is a huge drop. No, it's not. I mean, he's realistically, A's way better than whatever. I think they had him at like 114 or something, right? In mock draft. That's way too low for Dwayne Carter. He looked so damn unguardable in the Senior Bowl. I heard like very highly regarded people say great things about him heading into the Senior Bowl, and he executed. And I think like 295, I think he actually did hit 300 at the Senior Bowl. So he's got the size and played with that size very well, very quickly. So say he slims back down to 295. So what? I think he's still a great player alongside Aleem McNeil. I mean, who are you going to have? Benito Jones, Levi Onwuzurike has been very disappointing. So Aleem McNeil, who even faces a little bit of an injury problem here to there. Dwayne Carter can fill in. I think they need interior more than people kind of grasp right now. And again, edge rusher, Marshawn Nealon, Brandon Dorless, who's more interior guy than edge rusher. He's more of your 3-tech, actually. I don't think he fits the scheme and or the want right now for Detroit. I think if it would be any edge rusher right here, it would be Marshawn Nealon. But to me, Dwayne Carter's better and makes this team better, makes the defensive line better. So we're doing that. Dominic Puny, just kind of hit on him. He played tackle this last season for Kansas and then played guard really well for them 2 seasons ago or last year. So inside out versatility, probably would slide over to Baltimore and play guard right away. I definitely could be wrong about that, but I think if he's going to play anywhere, it'd probably be guard until either like Morgan Moses or even when who's the guy that's there, Ronnie Stanley. He's injured quite often nowadays, right? So Puny could slide over there and fill in his spot while he's low, so that way you're not seeing like Daniel Falele or whatever, I forgot his name or how to pronounce it, but I think it's Falele. You have that higher, better player. Morgan Moses on the other side, already mentioned. I think Bozeman, I'm pretty sure, is a part of that offensive line. So Puny just solidifies another spot inside, and then he can fill in for Ronnie Stanley outside, because you were kind of missing that this last season. I think 2 seasons ago they had someone, or like last year they had someone. So Puny, to me, great fit, great player, and I mean, he's an experienced player, and you actually really like that at the offensive line. If I'm a talent evaluator in the NFL, I think I'd like experience at the offensive line position, especially in the 2nd round or so. Or I guess this is really late 2nd. Ricky Pearsall will be the pick here for me at 63. People probably won't like this, but yeah, wide receiver, I think Juwan Jennings' contract's expiring. You're probably going to have to get rid of, I mean, there's some rumors right now with Brandon Ayuk possibly getting traded out of San Francisco. Deebo Samuel, who knows what his contract looks like. They have to pay a lot of guys a lot of money, and so we'll see how that the complete roster's built. And who knows, you might need someone else, and Pearsall to me fits to a T. This is a tough guy. This is a great football player, puts in the work, has his catches, and he's good after the catch. He's got some great quickness, and I think he's like a marginal athlete. I don't think he'll go to the combine and blow people away, but I think he will be better than expectations, like by the average Joe watching the combine. Like you see Ricky Pearsall, like, oh, okay, this is like a 4.45 guy. I think he'll run closer to 4.40. Ricky Pearsall, great player. Yeah, showed up at the Senior Bowl and was absolutely amazing, and kind of just, I guess, I don't say he was shadowed by, or outshadowed, right? Something like that, over Roman Wilson. But I think he was just as good, if not better, than Roman Wilson. He was just kind of a little less talked about because people might have expected the 6 foot 195 receiver, whatever he weighed in at, to be better than Roman Wilson, who's looking like the Amon-Ra St. Brown blueprint at his size. So we'll have to see what happens with both those guys. I think they are relatively in the same like range. I think Roman Wilson's even a little bit low here, and I think he actually falls a little bit further for me than I wanted him to. He should be off the board at this point, but like I said, these skill players just ended up falling. Leonard Taylor for the Chiefs is gonna be the pick, and they need interior. Derek Noddy, and they actually had Parnell, I believe his name was. Didn't know who the hell that guy was, but showed up in the Senior Bowl, and that's good. Chris Jones might be going to the free agent market. So Leonard Taylor just comes in. He's really quick. He's really, I wouldn't say powerful initially, but he's got the drive from his legs and lower body to help him get that push with his power, and I guess uses his lower body to help with that and facilitate the power throughout the rest of his body between like upper body, arms, swipe left, swipe left. Like, there are things that Leonard Taylor does better than a lot of the defensive linemen in his class, but there's just some things that hold him down. He's currently suffering an injury. Like, there's things that hold him down, but he's just addressing a need for the Kansas City Chiefs here, late second round. I think you're getting a great player in Leonard Taylor that has fortunately fallen to you, and I think they'll have their pick of the pie here. Like, we saw Dwayne Carter. He's probably going to be available at this spot, or like if Leonard Taylor gets whatever. They're going to have their options here at defensive interior if they want. Carolina, I'm going Brandon Dorless here for them. They just need interior help, or I mean, wherever the hell Dorless plays, I think he's your next Yetur Gross-Matos. For Carolina Panthers fans, they know who that is, Yetur Gross-Matos. If you guys are closer to the NFL or like kind of know who Yetur Gross-Matos is, you know what I'm talking about. Kind of a tweener, and right now his size is so bad. In my opinion, I think he's slimming down for the combine. He slimmed down for the Senior Bowl, and it did not result in great. I guess it didn't result in great play, or it was a great decision. Didn't really pay off right away. So we'll see how he tests at the combine. If he tests really well, then sure, then you might see it pay off, and he might go a lot higher than this. But like I said, a little bit of a tweener right now. And if you guys know who Yetur Gross-Matos is, I think that's like the comp for him, like from team to team. So I think Dorless just helps that defensive line. He's a talented player. I really like what he does as a player, and he plays with good power, good long arms, I think. And I don't know. I prefer Marshawn Kneeland here. If you're looking for like just pure edge rusher and you lose Brian Burns, then yeah, possibly. But I'm taking Dorless here. We just spoke about him. We're going Marshawn Kneeland here for the Arizona Cardinals. Do you necessarily want him? Yeah, I mean, they're going to want every single player they can get in this draft. They're going to want to hit on every single one. It's a pretty depleted roster for Arizona. And if your best edge rusher was probably Gardeck, and if not, it was BJ Ojulari, those are your two guys. You need to improve. Ojulari's still developing, and I think that he really came on the second half of the season. So you have a finesse speed guy over there, and then you have power with Marshawn Kneeland on the other side. I think it's always best to combine the two on the same, or off the opposite edges, I guess, on the same team. Is get one power guy, get one finesse guy. I really like that dynamic, and I think Kneeland does a good job of using different moves instead of just like sticking to power. I think he uses his power and then makes the offensive lineman fall into a trap and then spin, whatever it is. He's still just good with his arms regardless. He's got great drive. Like, he just drives, and I guess like he's got great I would say drive. Yeah, I wouldn't mix that word up with anything else, because I think that's the best way to describe it, is drive. Like, he can push you, he can make an impact, he can cave the pocket in. I think he's a good player, and to be going in the third round, I think this is somewhat of a steal. Now, people might look at him a little lower than me, including NFL mock draft database here, but whatever. And the NFL probably looks at him a little bit higher than I am right now, of thinking he could be a top, I don't know if he's a top 50 player. I'd maybe like a top 65 pick, and he's just outside of that for me. Not a whole lot of players you can fit in, but going early third is still pretty good, and you're getting a player like Kneeland, who I wouldn't say the upside's massive, but I'd say that the player could end up being really good. And in the third round, I think you'll take that. And if you have a high enough evaluation on him, obviously, yes. And if not, I mean, Austin Booker's here, Javon Solomon, depending on the type of player you want. Like, it all comes down to what the teams want. So this is all like me guessing pretty much. We're playing a guessing game with this late down the board. Linebacker 2, Peyton Wilson off the board. We saw it was Edgerrin Cooper off the board first. Now Peyton Wilson. Those two were spread few and far between. I think we were seeing Cooper in the 40s, right? I think it was somewhere in the 40s. So about 20 picks later, we have Peyton Wilson, who's off the board to the Commanders. They're just missing that presence inside. Peyton Wilson has a severe injury history. If not, I think he'd be the #1 guy, like pretty consensus or whatever, pretty consistently for everybody. And Peyton Wilson, he flies. I think he could be a little bit more physical against the run, but when it comes to covering, he's a good job in pass coverage. Awareness is pretty good. He can crash downhill, but I think he lacks a little bit more violence, and that could just be scared to get hurt again. But character's great. Peyton Wilson, I think he'll go. Maybe he has a chance to go a bit higher than this from my eyes, and if NFL teams kind of dismiss some of the medical stuff, which is very hard to do with Peyton Wilson, as it's been very consistent injuries throughout even his high school career. I think the senior year had an injury. Like, he just had a tough time so far with injuries. Kalen Carson is going to be the pick here for me. We're going to try to start like breezing past some of this, but super fun tape, physical corner. He's got the intangibles. He's got great size. His athleticism might lack a little bit. He tries to get the jump on some of the guys that he goes up against. I watched him against, I think it was Keon Coleman, so it was pretty good there. He had a couple pass breakups in the first like 5 minutes of tape, so that's always great. And yeah, Carson off the board for me at 68. He's placed with some fire. I think it fits the New England way, and whether or not that changes with Jerod Mayo under head coach, I don't think so. I think that the New England Patriot, like the Patriot way, still has that certain mentality and that edge to him, and I think Carson excels and has that in general, so I wouldn't be opposed to this pick at all. I think this is actually be huge for New England. Jonathan Brooks for the Chargers. Now, people might question this one over guys like Trey Benson and Corum, obviously. Estime has been talked about, Ray Davis, Jalen Wright, Marshawn Lloyd down here, Braylon Allen. Like, there are guys and they're all in like the same area. So Brooks has a torn ACL, and he is currently nurturing that ACL, and we'll see what happens, like how soon he'll be able to get into team activity. But once he gets drafted, which I still think will be generally higher than some of the other running backs just because of the upside so good, and ACLs basically mean nothing nowadays. I don't think it hinders, because we've seen guys just return from ACLs and they're just fine. They're like kind of the same player. So Brooks, to me, same situation here. You're just drafting an injured player, so it just, in that case, like, it just lowers the value in general. Or I think Brooks would be like the consensus #1 guy, and Texas has done a great job recruiting. When you look at Brooks, right, it's just, I like him. I like the player. I like the overall play as a running back. I think he's probably the most well-rounded guy between catch, pass, break tackles, elusiveness. Like, he's got the tools. He's got the I don't know if he'd be a top, like, I don't know, 55 to 60 pick if it weren't for the injury, but that seems to hinder him a little bit. And Jonathan Brooks, first or second running back off the board, and first one here in this 3rd round. Christian Mahogany is going to be the pick here at 70 for the New York Giants. Interior offensive line, I think right guard for Boston College over the last 2 or so years. He was really good, like as a freshman. I think he made like the All-American freshman team or whatever, and then went down with an injury, rebutted really nicely, came back, looked like the same player, and picked up right where he left off at the East Shrine Bowl, or East-West Shrine Bowl. So Christian Mahogany, 70th overall pick, and you could have kind of your pick of the crop here. I mean, Cooper Beebe is here, or Beebe, and I know people like Zach Zinter, so take that with a grain of salt, because he's a little further down there for just about like all the professionals or all the rankings and stuff. I don't see Zinter in the same conversation as Mahogany. And Cooper Beebe, or BB, however you say it, he's moving up boards pretty consistently right now, or he's pretty consistently inside that top like 75-80 players in draft boards and rankings and stuff. Michael Hall for the Cardinals. Now, they did just get Marshawn Nealon, but they're gonna go defensive, and this is more of your interior guy. I think he's more around 280, but that's fine. He wears it really well. The 280's good on Michael Hall. It still allows him to be powerful. Like, he's ready for the NFL physicality. And I think he's got great speed with his hands. He's got, like, I wouldn't say the best of power, but for 280, he can handle the task at hand with an interior offensive lineman. Hall is not a Tracy guy, but you're shooting for upside with him here in terms of, like, I guess, yeah, just in terms of the draft pick, obviously, right? But to put it into better words, I think Michael Hall has a chance to like miss on him, and then he's just becoming a total situational guy. Like, sometimes you might want him on the field, but if he hits, he's a great player. He's got all the things, basically. He's got tools to work with. for a lack of better words. Amon-Ra St. Sorry, Roman Wilson off the board here at 72 for the New York Jets. The Jets. Roman Wilson has fallen so far down, and this is where he was looked at before the Senior Bowl. Now, after the Senior Bowl, we've seen him in first-round mock drafts. Yikes. This is bad for me. I think I'm going to get slandered for this one quite a bit. Let me know how you feel down in the comments. I know it's not going to be great. Roman Wilson, an absolute dog. Great football player. Amazing at the separation ability. I think he's pretty good at that. And he's got great speed, track guy. He's a great athlete, gets down the field. I'm expecting 4.3 speed at the combine. I'll be floored if he doesn't run like over, or I don't, how do you word this one? I would be floored if he doesn't run a 4.35 and under, I think is how you would say. Yeah, I feel like that's good phrasing. Go me. Austin Booker for the Detroit Lions to give Aiden Hutchinson a counterpart, or even James Houston a counterpart. Hutch is always been like, they've been looking for tools on the other side of Hutch, right? We just drafted Dwayne Carter, who in itself takes attention, in my opinion. I really like Dwayne Carter. Then you put Austin Booker in a rotation with James Houston on the other side of Hutchinson. You can move Dwayne Carter. He even played edge at times for the Duke, whatever they're, I think they're like some sort of Devils or something, but for Duke, Dwayne Carter ended up going outside, so you could do that. So you could have Duke outside or at 3 tech, and then you could have Booker out wide, Houston out wide, Aiden Hutchinson at 3 tech, and then have a Lee McNeil. Imagine that on the defensive line now. Like, that gives them a lot more availability, a lot more players to just stack up against an offensive line that could be total mismatches. And if Austin Booker hits, by the way, this is a huge upside play. This is a guy that has every single thing to, or has all the right reasons to be good. He has no excuses other than he's a little younger. He came out as a sophomore. I think he should have stayed another year, but hey, if he's coming out this year, I don't think it's a bad decision. I think you're still going to generate some buzz. I think you're still going to get picked inside the top. I'd say 95 players. It's generous. I think like 90 to 85 players, and Booker just traits alone, long, lengthy, strong. Like, he has this like long arm move, and then he can bring it back in and then swipe. Like, he's good. I think with a little bit more refinement, he could have gone in the top 2 rounds, like really early second even, because of the traits, if the right teams are there and the right situation, whatever. Booker could end up being a big time player, and then like I mentioned, it just offers more availability along that defensive line with a guy like Dwayne Carter and Austin Booker there with Aiden Hutchinson, guys like Aleem McNeil, Levi Onwuzurike if he wants to get back to playing well. Couldn't let Xavier Worthy slide any further. He's going off the board here at 74. Just needs some deep speed. You don't really have that. London's a vertical threat, and sure, he's a jump ball guy. Who else? They got Van Jefferson's fine. Pitts is kind of meh. He has been. I think that he's still a very good player, but just can't wait to see him get used properly. We'll see how that works, because I could see him being like a big slot, and then just having Xavier Worthy's vertical speed could be huge, and this is way too far for him to fall. Like I mentioned, even Tez Walker should have been gone way before this. Benson's falling. Like, there are just like guys that, like I said, they just didn't manage to find themselves off the board. So in future longer mock drafts, I'll have to take them a little earlier and maybe focus on that a little bit more, because this is just not where these guys should be going. Tez Walker, the North Carolina drops everything receiver. If you guys watched him at the Senior Bowl, that really hurt the opinion on him, but not to the point where he should be sliding back to number 75. I think he's still worth it. I think he'll be a top 65 player for me. Now, whether or not he gets drafted in that area, I think that would be like the right area, is like 55 to 65. I think that range feels right for him. I think he'll stack up well against some of the other receivers at that point. Who knows what the Chicago Bears want to pair Caleb Williams up with? But if it is Devontae Walker, I'd be more than happy, because he's a good separator. He gets downfield. He's a vertical threat with, I wouldn't say like incredible speed, but he does have very long strides, and that helps him out early in his route, get that separation over top. The DB has to recover, and some DBs are worse than others at that, and Walker could do a good job just cooking guy downfield. So I'm taking Walker at 75. He is a tall specimen too, by the way, so he's not like a smaller receiver that just gets downfield. Javon Bullard for the Denver Broncos. I don't know if that's where you want to take him. PJ Locke is still a thing, And Justin Simmons, he's getting a little older now, so you could see where this pick's like coming from. They did have Kareem Jackson, but as much as that's worth, I think he's like 34, 33 by now. So he's also a little bit older. PJ Locke still gave up a few big plays, but he's just like a good guy to have on a team. He's rambunctious and whatnot. So Bullard to me makes sense here. There are other ways that this team could go. Denver's kind of a team that has more needs than I feel like is generally said. Like people say like they need this, they need that, and that's pretty much it. And then they could be a winning team. And then you're in a very tough division in the AFC West, and I think you're going to need a complete roster to at least contend for a playoff spot if you're the Denver Broncos. And I don't even think they got a quarterback in this, or did they? I could be wrong. No, so it's been Terrion Arnold and Javon Bullard, two just secondary picks. McKinley Jackson, another Senior Bowl standout. I'm not going to lie, he was a really good player at the Senior Bowl, and then I went and watched his tape, and he translated well there too. In my eyes, this is a guy that is lightning quick for 320 whatever pounds he came in at. I think he might actually been closer to like the 315. I don't remember what his exact Senior Bowl weigh-in was like. Quickness for days, in my opinion, and he had nice strength to push. So we saw Fisk do it a lot where he got to half of the body. So when you're looking at a guard, right, there's a whole ass man in front of you. And it was a good job by Fisk most of the time at the Senior Bowl to fake one side and maybe go back to the other, whatever move, to get to the outside of them. So you're dealing with half of the defender or half of the offensive lineman. You're dealing with half their body. You're dealing with basically both their legs, obviously, because that's just the way a human's built. But then they have very little leverage and one arm to get to you, if you know what I mean. So you're getting to that outside hip, that edge, whatever, and you want to basically like just beat the guy and go around him, and Fisk did a good job. And then another guy that went so far to the radar that I feel like we didn't really hear about was Jackson. I mean, he came out here, he did a good job. And McKinley, I was about to call him Malik, but I knew that wasn't right. So McKinley Jackson did a good job of forcing one side, getting the leverage on that side, and then switching back to the part where he had more leverage. So he would say, I'm going to try to go inside, and he bites there. It gets back outside while the offensive lineman bit in. So if that makes any sense, if you guys get what I'm saying, Jackson did a good job manipulating, I guess, the body, the leverage, the weight, and the strength of his arms, the quickness of his legs. Like, it just matches really well. I think he could actually be drafted higher than 77, but there are the same arguments and questions about him that can make him fall and you know, be drafted after Oro, or what did he say? It was, okay, so Rook Oro said in an interview, this guy right here, Rook, he said, "Oh, row your boat." Like, that's the way to like remember it. So it's or it's like row your boat. So row. So Rook row. Which is so, oh my god, losing brain cells. Cooper Beebe on the inside. I'm gonna call him Beebe for now because it's funnier than BB, I think, but Beebe is just good, so I'm gonna call him Beebe. Cooper Beebe, interior offensive line for Seattle. Get Oluwatimi at center. Get Cooper Beebe at left or right guard. I think right guard is the position that you'd want to fill. Have Damian Lewis at left guard, and then have your tackles Charles Cross and Abe Lucas. I think that's his name, right? I could be wrong on that. Yeah, I think it's Abraham Lucas or whatever. We have that. And yeah, Cooper Beebe fills in a spot. I think he's good. He plays with a lot of, like, he's not overly talented. He's not great at moving, whatever. He just has power. He's an anchor. I think that's just something that, like, he just stands out and just uses his hands and grip strength and all of his like lower body power. Like, he just does a good job keeping the guy in front of him, and that's what you want to do, and that's how you're playing offensive line, and as long as it works, you're fine. Oh, row your boat. We're gonna have Atlanta take, I hate to make fun of a guy's name like that, but Rook, oh, row your boat. So Rook row is off the board here at 79 inside the top 80. People see him a lot higher, people see him a lot lower. There are some people that are like up and down on him, but I mean, I've heard good and bad things. I have not watched him a whole lot. I watched one game, like I did with most of these guys. Didn't stand out as like a game changer for me. I think he was fine, but like I said, I don't think he's a game changer. But that's not really what Atlanta needs. They just need like a plug-in-and-play defensive lineman. Grady Jarrett's getting a little older now. Who did they have this last year that did really good for them and like graded out really, really well? I can't remember somehow. Either way, it's a need, I think. I know, but some people might think that there's better things you could have gone with on this with this draft pick. But I'm going Rook or Row. So there you go. Malachi Corley. People like to comp him to Debo. He's just not the same player. But yeah, Malachi Corley, pick number 80 of this draft, going in the 3rd round. Good run after catchability, but he went to the Senior Bowl and really displayed like he's got some nuance playing receiver. He won in some of the one-on-ones. He was good at just catching the football, looked fluid. So Malachi Corley, a lot of upside here. And when I thought about the Cincinnati Bengals, especially if you lose T. Higgins, you just don't have this type of player. Jamar Chase, he's electric, sure. But do you have a guy that you could just say and throw within like the line of scrimmage or 2 yards of the line of scrimmage and say, hey, go grab 5 yards for us on 1st down on a little RPO or whatever? No. And I think Malachi Corley does a good job opening up that offense. As dumb as it sounds, this 3rd round pick can do a good job opening one of the better offenses in the league. It's kind of crazy. So I like the bargain for the buck here. This is really good. If this is like a situation available, I'd be more than okay with the Cincinnati Bengals going this way, and I don't think there's much else that I'd rather do if I were the Bengals doing this. And so that's why it just made the most sense to me. I was like, okay, if they lose T. Higgins, right? Like Rice is on the board, McMillan is maybe a little bit more physical, Wilson maybe like just a deer in headlights sort of deal. Maybe you don't want him on a prolific offense, right? And then Malachi Corley kind of just stuck out to me. I was like, no, they don't have a guy like that, so I'm gonna give him Malachi Corley. And as dumb as it sounds, he could be a game changer for them right away. Just having that presence on an offense, having that extra, like they have the X and the Y's, the Z's on the board, the playbook, whatever you want to say. He just adds another weapon to that offense, and they can afford to draft him here, not drafting like anybody else, I guess, right? So makes sense to me, might not to you guys, and let me know why, but this to me makes total and complete sense, and I probably wouldn't pass on this if I were the Cincinnati Bengals from what I know personally right now, obviously. Kalen Bullock will be the pick here for me, safety. Some people like him more than I do. I don't really like the size that comes with him, but I think he could be a good player when all said and done, when he's in the NFL, when he's actually just playing on the field, whatever it is. But Seattle just needs some people back there. Jamal Adams most likely gone. Quandre Diggs getting quite to the older side. And then they have Julian Love there. That's a good point. But he's not the same type of player Bullock is, and they could use a more physical safety. I'd say like James Williams is like the one that comes to mind. But I don't think you're going to overdraft Cole Bishop. Tyke Smith's more of your slot corner. He's a lot more similar to Julian Love. I mean, there's things, but Kalen Bullock just made the most sense to me at this point. When you look at what I've done with Seattle in this, like Seattle, Jerzon, Cooper, and then going Kalen Bullock here. It just kind of stood out to me as made the most sense. I couldn't find an edge rusher I'd like here if I were sure, Solomon's there. I don't think you already have like Darrell Taylor, Nelson Caesar, Mo Kamara. Like there's just there wasn't any options, and Kalen Bullock made the most sense to me, and I thought that it was actually kind of a steal. Jeremiah Trotter now, they need help next to Zaire Franklin. Franklin's a great player, and he's been such a huge presence on that defense for them since the whole Shaq Leonard thing, and he went down with injuries. Zaire had to step up, and like he was just so good right away. A special teams captain comes on and he's good, but he's like 28 now. He's already getting a little bit older. Contract might be a little different there. EJ Speed's probably the next best guy. Like Trotter comes in and makes that the middle of that defense a lot better already. Like, just in my opinion, it's a linebacker needy team. Jeremiah Trotter is a smart player. He's played good competition. I like Jeremiah Trotter a lot to the spot in 82. Spencer Rattler maybe is your Matthew Stafford successor. I wouldn't say that there's like a lot of similarities between the two. I'm just not going to say there isn't. Rattler can learn a lot and adapt to Stafford's game. It doesn't look like Stetson Bennett's going to be your guy. And he's like away from the team right now. I think mental health's a thing for him, so feels bad there, right? But Spencer Rattler, I don't know where their quarterback board looks like. I don't know what it looks like, and Rattler could go in the second round for all I know. NFL is so spotty, and the opinions on Rattler are just spotty in general by the general public and what I hear from the NFL. So I don't know. It just felt like the right spot to let another quarterback go off the board, to be honest. And I wasn't trying to like squeeze one off the board, obviously, but I just thought the Rams like might want this opportunity if they are one of the Spencer Rattler teams. I mean, let me know down in the comments, or a few of these picks, like, I just didn't really know where to go. So kind of just go with like what makes the best initial sense to me that can be plausible. That's kind of the thought process here. Jarvis Brownlee, now you're like 146. What are you doing? This is Senior Bowl standout, has pretty good tape on the season, just kind of flew under the radar and really stood out as a guy that can mirror, predict, and just an aggressive cornerback. And I think that's like Pittsburgh's, like, I think that's amazing for Pittsburgh, who already drafted and solidified a little bit more of that secondary with, we took Carmen Kinchins for them earlier, if I remember correctly. So Pittsburgh Steelers, I was looking for the S of Steelers. This is good for them, getting at least like some corner value after they missed on him in the first like 2 rounds maybe. I don't think that there were any here other than maybe like Kalen Carson. That would have made a little bit of sense. So Jarvis Brownlee, not as high here, like I said, on the NFL mock draft database, but I think it's still pretty good. Like, I still think it's a great pick here. Just kind of reminds me of like a Steelers player, right? So we're gonna go with Brownlee, and hopefully the consensus raises on him because he's a good player and I really like him. Junior Colson will be off the board here. This is a team that, like, they might want like a receiver or something. The ones remaining, they're not bad. I actually take McMillan over the rest of them. I'm in love with Johnny Wilson, by the way. Jamari Thrash is good. Burton's good, but I mean, you already have Elijah Moore for your like slot receiver, so you could do the different things here. But Colson to me just made the most sense with like their linebacker room where it looks like right now. Stefanski coming off Coach of the Year, did a good job with the offense, what was given to him. So like maybe you just want to improve the defense a little bit more after it was already like just improve what you're good at. And Colson kind of just, I think he comes in, he can fly. So it's a good match up there with Anthony Walker. Might not be your linebacker. Like, you don't know. It's kind of a question mark for them. Linebacker spot is. So I'd say that the Michigan linebacker comes in, and I don't know if he's your number 1 right away, but I'm pretty sure he starts in any way, shape, or form right away, or in some shape or form right away from the 3rd round to starter. I don't see how that's like a terrible thing. We actually just talked about Tyke Smith, but they need a slot corner over there, and corner in general. Steven Nelson can play the outside for 1 more year if they choose to extend him. He's like 29, and then they only have Derek Stingley Jr. there. That's pretty much their corner room. Now, Houston Texans fans, let me know what you want at this spot, because I was kind of scrambling for 15-20 minutes on this, kind of just looking around. Tyke Smith was impressive to me. I think he was a little bit lower here, obviously, on NFL mock draft database than the I'd say like PFF has a pretty decent board. Like, some stuff on there is still a bit crazy, and Trevor Sikkema, who runs that over there, great draft analyst in my opinion, and I respect him and what he does a lot over there. So kind of listen to that. And Tyke Smith isn't even this high over there, but Tyke Smith, slot corner, undervalued. Like, who else would you want to go with for your like slot? Chris Abrams-Drain, he's fiery, but I don't know, like, I'm not going to question the intelligence, right? But I just don't know if I'd take him there. And then when it comes to like looking for a slot corner, I don't think Hicks or Bishop's your guy. Williams is a bit far down. He's more of your linebacker type. Vaki, same things, physical guy. So yeah, Tyke Smith just made the most sense to me out of like best player available. If you wanted to take a running back, I guess this would have been the spot. That's a way I definitely could have gone, now that I'm thinking about it. Kind of sucks that we didn't. We're going Javon Solomon here. Now, what are you doing? Like, this is still a very good player that is rated really low here. NFL mock draft database. This is a guy, all right? This is an athletic man, and there are glimpses of, shall I say, Micah Parsons. Now, I'm not saying and comparing him to any like way, shape, or form. That would be absolutely boneheaded of me to compare the two. But Solomon played off-ball linebacker early on at Troy, converted to edge rusher, and now he's just pure, like, I think they just know that the type, and that's why I'm taking the pick here. Solomon has glimpses, and he's got great quickness, and I'll watch more and more Solomon, but he was fun to watch. Really underperformed or disappointed at, I believe it was the Senior Bowl he went to. I don't think he was an East-West Shrine guy, so I think it was the Senior Bowl, and didn't really see much of him there, but team drills were fine and never really stood out in the one-on-ones. But Solomon, you know, I'm not counting the traits out on that, and especially to a team like Dallas who's done the Micah Parsons thing before. I don't think he's near the same player caliber or anything like that. I'm saying they know how to deal with a guy like this. Johnny Wilson, now this is just becoming the draft of my favorite players, but I was thinking about it. I was like, okay, I don't want to like just let my opinions drive the Packers draft. Then I started thinking, I'm like, where else would I even go Like on that pick, like there was no real place, maybe offensive line, like best offensive lineman available. But we already got Jordan Morgan, and I was like, okay, running back, no, Bucky Irving. So I just kind of bounced around until I landed on Johnny Wilson, and McMillan could have been a guy, but that's like Romeo Dobbs 2.0. Wilson is just so different than any other thing. Like, he's just a mismatch, right? And not only that, he is a great run blocker. And when we are running the ball, we are so good when we can run at will and then pass, right? Like with Jordan Love, obviously, right? So that's where we're really, really good. And Wilson is a like tremendous blocker, I tell you. Like, this guy, probably the best blocking receiver in this draft, like probably surely because of his size. But once he has someone in front of, you're not getting out from 6'6" Johnny Wilson at 237 playing receiver. He can reach out with one arm and another arm, and he'd be like, all right, you two need to stay here. All right, he's like a bouncer. This guy's insane. Johnny Wilson is mismatch galore, mismatch merchant, I guess is what could be said there. Like, give him a little nickname. I don't know. I just like it when I narrowed it down. I was like, Johnny Wilson makes sense. I love him, but it makes sense. I don't know. Some of you guys could be like, oh, you're just like picking your favorite player for the pack. Sure, maybe I am, but they're making sense. I don't. Maybe there's a disconnect in my brain somewhere that's like telling me they make sense when it really doesn't, because I like the, like, maybe, right? There's a very low chance that's happening. Oh, maybe another player I'm in love with, Cade Stover. This guy is as old-fashioned as it gets, about as good of a blocker it gets at tight end as well. So I think he is the best blocking tight end in this class. Maybe Brock Bowers has something to say about that. I don't think Ben Sinnott's in that conversation either. And Jatavion Sanders definitely not. So Theo Johnson, I haven't watched him yet. I want to really bad. I really want to watch more Theo. You have Cade freaking Stover now, and Cade Otton and Cade Stover, Cades by the way, both of them didn't connect that before this. But anywho, different type of players. They can, you know, both be very good in 12 personnel. Stover's still a good, like, catch and run threat. He's very violent as a runner. He's got good, like, great hands. My grade is huge on Cade Stover. Like I mentioned, I think his film grade is actually above JT Sanders because he's so good at blocking. I think he's the highest rated blocker, blocking tight end, even over Brock Bowers by like 2 points or so. Listen, Stover, to me, this is even like maybe even a little late to take Cade Stover. I'm so on board with Cade Stover. I think he's so, like, he's such a pro tight end. I think he'll be great in the league, especially in an old school like offense. Todd Bowles is a little bit older. He's not like what a Staley was trying to do, Arthur Smith. Like, he's not that type of coach. So I don't know, man. A new offensive coordinator will come in there, and hopefully, like, I'd love to see this fit. I'd love to see it. Brendan Rice to the Arizona Cardinals. Let's bring some of that height to the to whatever they're called. They're called the Arizona Cardinals. Let's bring some height to that receiving room. Rondale Moore might be gone. Marquise Brown hit free agency, and Hopkins is not there anymore. That's right. Jesus. Yeah, Brendan Rice would come in, probably not be wide receiver 1. I'm sure someone else there, you know, might have something to say about that. But Michael Wilson's there. He's got okay height, but Brendan Rice, physical player. He's not the technician Wilson is. I think it's a good fit. Let me know again, like, what you want here. Maybe another running back spot. But I just think that the wide receiver position is a little bit more valuable, especially with how James Conner ended last season. I know we just kind of defied offensive line for my Packers earlier, but we're taking Cedric Van Pran here, Van Pran, however you say it, but he's a starting center for Georgia. And that means a lot, because he's a starting center for Georgia. If he comes into the league, he can have a competition with Josh Myers, like, right away, our center. And I'd have no problem playing him over Josh Myers. If he wants to slide to right guard, hell, play over John Runyon. I don't like Myers or Runyon right now. They were really good at the tail end of the season, but the beginning was so rough. And I understand, like, players change throughout the course of a season. I could see why you wouldn't do this, and you might want to just accumulate some more weapons and or depth. I was thinking linebacker here, but I was like, there's no one really left. Like, the only guy I would think of here is Maurice Liufau or Trevin Wallace. He's just a tremendous, like, coverage player. And with Devondre Campbell being so injury prone nowadays, it might be nice. But I was like, well, free agency is a thing, so shuffled right back in here. And Von Pran might have to sit or just be a fill-in, swing, whatever guy, like just a depth guy for his first year. But there's no doubt in my mind this guy could be really good. in year 2 and just better than the guys we have currently playing. So I'm taking Von Braun here at 91, not 29. That'd be insane. Then we can move to another one of my favorite players. Cam Hart is a fun one. Notre Dame. I think I was on him very, very early. So fun story. I did like this YouTube channel. It used to be for Madden, and at the beginning of the year when I was making a Madden draft class, I was looking for more UDFA guys to fill up like kind of the draft class at the cornerback spot. And then I was like, well, where are people with size? Because a lot of these guys are a little like they're a little and I came around on Cam Hart and I was like, okay, like I just kept reading and it was like 6'2", 200, and it kept going. And then I saw like the Bruce Feldman's freak list. I was like, okay, like what am I missing here? Why is he so bad? And he ended up just being like a 3rd to 4th round guy when it came to like Madden rating in that draft class. And here we are. We're putting him here inside the top 95 picks at 92, the 3rd round to the Detroit Lions. Unfortunately, like I had to do it to the Detroit Lions because, I mean, I'm a Packers fan. I would actually really hate, but I also love to see Cam Hart 2 times a year. So who knows? Cam Hart, though, he might have been a little outlier-ish or whatever. Like he's got, I didn't understand it, or I still don't, how he's still like a little bit lower, and that's why he's pushed down here. He'd be a 2nd round player for me, a late 2nd, if it weren't for like, you know, consensus. What is that? What is consensus? Because Cam Hart, he's got everything in my opinion. His athleticism, his recovery speed, he mirrors really well. Like he just has it, you know. And I really like Cam Hart. It doesn't like harm me to put him to the Detroit Lions or to the Detroit Lions in a mock draft because it's a mock draft. But if he actually goes there in the NFL draft, I might have a problem with that. Like he might not be my favorite player or one of my favorite players in the class anymore, but he'll still be one I keep tabs on till his career ends because I love Cam Hart. If I'm the Baltimore Ravens, there's no way I'm passing on McMillan here. I think he's like 6'1", 220, or not 222, like something 210, maybe 205, somewhere around there. He's a good size. He's got who did we take for earlier? Who did we give them earlier? We gave them, oh, we were talking about someone else. We were talking about a slot player, like someone a little bit smaller, Lad McCoy, whatever. We were talking about someone that would have been similar to Zay Flowers, and now you're not getting someone. It's Jalen McMillan. In my opinion, like I haven't watched him like game after game, and I haven't like broke down his tape yet. He's a little bit more on the depth side of the receivers. I done like the top 10 or so. I can't remember, but I ended up watching Adunze and Polk, and he didn't stand out a whole lot until I started like looking for him, and his routes were nice. I thought he did like an okay job, but there's like things holding him back, question marks about him. Definitely a low sample size type of guy. And there are people out there that love McMillan, and there are some McMillan haters out there. I'm right around the middle. I don't know where like the consensus is on him, if I'm being honest, but he goes here at 93 for me, and he just gives another dimension to the Baltimore pass game that I wouldn't say they've been missing. It's like OBJ and Rashad Bateman mashed into one and then made into like a diet version. That's how kind of I would put it. And McMillan, who knows, can develop into a great player, and nothing stopping him from being a great player. Blake Fisher will be the pick for me at 94. Now, it might be a little early for a guy you probably don't know, but this is a guy that plays on the other side of Joe Alt. We've talked about how the San Francisco like scheme doesn't need offensive linemen or whatever, but if you could take someone like Blake Fisher with high-end traits in the like towards the back end of the 3rd round, I don't see why you don't. I mean, I spent my entire evening on the 2 most recent San Francisco picks, on the Blake Fisher pick, and they picked somewhere else. I think it actually might be coming up. I was like, what the hell do I do with the San Francisco 49ers? I really couldn't figure it out. I was like, okay, like secondary, like that's fine. Like I think they're okay for now. Safety was in play, but it's like I don't want to give him like Cole Bishop. Like there's just kind of conflict going on in my mind. And then you look at Blake Fisher, and I was like, okay, he's a little bit further down the board. Let me read and watch a little bit. He's like extremely light on his feet for how big he is. He does a really good job. Like overall in general, I think I already said it. He had the high-end traits, and there's no reason you don't take him here. I think this is a good spot for Blake Fisher. Great landing spot, about as good as it gets. And learning from Trent Williams too could help a lot. And it, depending on how much of a leader like Trent Williams is, obviously I'm not sure. I'm not in the building, but if I'd have to assume he's a pretty good guy, and he's got the captain patch on him, and that doesn't come lightly in a San Francisco team where you don't block, you don't, what is it? It's I think Tony Romo came up with it. You don't block, you don't you don't see the field. Basically, there's a thing called a doghouse with Kyle Shanahan, and you have to be good. So I'm saying like the integrity's good. Blake Fisher, if he's like coached up right, I think he's well worth this pick. Slot corner, Chris Abrams-Dre. Now, he played boundary for Mizzou. I'd expect him to come out and play slot just because of his size. Kansas City had McDuffie initially there when he was drafted, and that was the plan for McDuffie. For a lot of people, it was like, okay, so this is your slot corner. McDuffie ended up like moving outside, and now he can like play in the slot if that's where he has to. L'Jarius Sneed might be gone, so you might be a corner down, whatever it is. Abrams-Drain comes in. He's a fiery like slot corner. I like the way he plays. He plays with a passion. He wants to be better. Now, I'm not going to say like his intelligence lacks or something. He's a lot better in man than he is zone. I'll tell you that. And physical player for his size. He's a little bit smaller. I really liked his draft profile as well. Hopefully he tests really well, because I think that could really vote well for him heading towards the draft. And I think he'd get picked really high. But for now, I would probably have him around this area here. So KC getting a good football player, can't hate that. Jermaine Burton for the Jacksonville Jaguars could be huge at this point in time. Like 96, you're not like looking for guys to make the roster or anything like that. You're looking for like, you know, role players, backups, developmental players that could be your guy or whatever in a year. Burton would come in and be your slot receiver right away. Kirk, Zay, and Calvin Ridley. So say Calvin Ridley's out of there. We'll say that. And then you'd have Kirk on one side, and then maybe Zay Jones on the other, and then you'd have Burton and Washington as kind of your wild card guys that can play everywhere. Now, it does complicate things having Christian Kirk as your slot receiver. Burton maybe can move outside, but I think he just profiles best in the slot, and I'd really like to see him play there. He's got a fun, like, he's really fast. He's a crazy athlete. He's had some adversity through his college career, done a good job playing through that and make some splash plays, big moments for Alabama. And Jermaine Burton. He's done a good job, at least like retaining value through the draft process. I don't think he's like lost any steam. I think that his name doesn't care. Like, he's not talked about nearly enough, like in terms of where this guy actually could end up going in the draft. I think, yeah, Trevor Sycamore, the guy that runs the PFF board, he does a really good job, like stating what he thinks. And he thinks Burton's like a really good receiver. Now I see that, right? Like, you can obviously tell like good and bad. And I haven't dove like I said into Jermaine Burton. I haven't dove past like the top 10 or 7, 8 guys. I think that's kind of a line where like I haven't watched past, but I've heard great things. I love Jermaine's like athletic profile. Like, there was just things about him that like really intrigued me, so I can't wait to watch him, and I think he go a lot higher than this. So this is great for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It gives them a lot of availability and versatility in the receiving room, to be honest. And if Zay Jones is even out of there, bring in another bigger receiver later in the draft, or even earlier in the draft. Jamari Thrash here, Javon Baker later. Actually, I really was impressed with Javon Baker. Spoiler, I don't think he made the mock. Sione Vaki here for me, safety out of Utah. Physical traits, again, a physical player. They have Sidney Brown there that is sitting right now. Reed Blankenship's faced some injuries, and he hasn't really been like a consistently great player for you like they need on that team. Vaki develops behind like Kevin Byard or something, eventually becomes like his successor or something. Like, whatever the situation is, Sidney Brown and Vaki should make a really good like safeties of the future. Like, your best case scenario is Vaki develops for a year, does good, has like that Talanoa Hufanga trajectory where he learned from like Kevin Byard or whatever, steps up next to Sidney Brown, and those two are just a physical like flashy duo. That would be sick to watch, but the chance of that actually happening maybe a little lower. I guess they'll see it being a reality in Vaki for me here. And Reed Blankenship is probably just like a different type of player in my opinion. He's more of that cover over top guy, like free safety, or just something, yeah, I'd say over top guy. That's pretty much it. And Reed Blankenship, from a great story, UDFA, comes up, makes some big plays, and I think he actually started the Super Bowl for them last year, so good for him. No, okay, so the other pick here was Mason Smith. So this one also took me so long, and then like looked at their depth chart one more time. They have Armstead, they have Kinlaw, they have Hargrave, all in that interior, along with like other guys like Kevin Givens or whatever, and just a few other like wild cards. But Mason Smith to come in, he's huge. Like, I think I read like 6'6", 320 somewhere. And I don't know if that's accurate. I'd be so surprised. He's a lot higher for some people. He's a lot lower for some. I'm kind of in the middle ground here at 98. I've seen him like a little further down. I think that this is about like the low end of Mason Smith, actually, now I'm thinking about it. He could be really good. And if you pick him this late, like this is another high-end physical trait guy. Like learn from Eric Armstead. Armstead is very dynamic on the interior, plays like very two-way. And he's a lot like thinner, better against like the pass, and Mason Smith can have the whole pack. Like this is just home run hitting. If you are the San Francisco 49ers, let's go down and take a little look here at their draft class for how good and complete their roster is. Boom, Kamari Lassiter. Let's put Diamador Lenore in the slot, Charvarius Ward and Kamari Lassiter on the outside. That's amazing. Ricky Pearsall, add that, kind of replace Juwan Jennings with him. That's amazing. Blake Fisher, developmental tackle, probably one of the higher upsides that you'll find at 94. And then same thing at 98. That's insane. And then we'll take this guy, Renardo Green. He's not a safety. He is a boundary corner. He's just listed as safety here because they might think he profiles better there or whatever. So Renardo Green, not a safety, but a boundary corner. East-West Shrine, both stand out. Another guy that PFF has pretty high, not with ratings or anything like that, just as a prospect. Trevor Sikkema, really liked him. And then I went back, watched some of the East-West Shrine stuff, and then watched some of the Renardo Green, like Florida State defense stuff. So it was a pleasant surprise, and happy to see like a late riser. So Renardo Green got size. He's got a lot of the stuff you want, and like I said, kind of a standout and a pleasant surprise deeper down the board. Little off the hinges pick here. We're going Gabe Hall, number 100 overall. I wouldn't say this is like a I don't know, historically or 100 overall picks. Are they good? Like we gotta look at that. Yeah, let me know in the comments if you actually know historically of the 100th overall pick in every draft. Like what's the hit rate there? Because it's a pretty cool number to be drafted on. So Gabe Hall gets the honor this year in this mock draft. And yeah, just a good defensive lineman out of Baylor. Did a great job at the Senior Bowl, standing out, and I liked his tape. He wasn't as effective as you'd like, as consistently, but he had his moments, he had his flashes, and I think he was a good player and just adds to the good interior slash, like, he can play 3-tech out there. I mean, put him next to Kobe Turner. Looking at the Rams NFL depth chart, like, they just need they need pieces. And Gabe Hall would be a great one to add in addition to that defensive line and defense in general. Jamari Thrash falling to pick 101. I don't know if that's a fall. Like, let me know where you guys stand on Jamari Thrash. There are some people that are extremely high on him. And at the Senior Bowl, I think he was good. He was all right at separating. He didn't really show off like tremendous speed like people might have thought he had. I think he'll run closer to the 4.4s than people are saying, like a 4.2 area, like for Thrash. I'm like, no, I don't think that's like the right place to look or anything like that. I don't think that's where the reasonable expectations should be. But Jamari Thrash, all right, I'll tell you this. Jamari Thrash is good. He's still a 3rd round pick. I think he's the last, 3rd round pick, the last one. And I think he's worth it, but he had some problems with his hands. Like, he was up there pretty late, so maybe get him some contacts. He needs the game spectacles or whatever you call them, the goggles with like the glasses for the sports and stuff. Like, you can get him one of those, because there was times at the Senior Bowl where he would just like have late reactions. He wouldn't be great. He'd dance a whole lot, and there's just like some nuance to playing receiver. He needs to have more active hands. Like, they're just little things that Thrash can just pick up on, and he's got good size. There's up and downs with him. There's a lot more, I think, picking him this low, I think it's still good value. Don't get me wrong, I like the player. There are just some things that I struggle with watching him, and it kind of disappoints you a little bit. You're like, oh, that sort of deal. And it'll be Blake Corum here off the board, 102 overall. Injuries, he's a little bit older of a prospect. Trey Benson should not be on the board here, but yeah, Blake Corum, just a different type of player than Chuba Hubbard, and Miles Sanders has been kind of a disappointment to say the least. So we're gonna go Corum here at 102. I'm sure you guys know enough about him. He's kind of an interior bruiser. I actually had a really fun comp. I can't remember what it was, and I really want to pull it up, but I don't want to waste time like that. I'm kind of on the time crunch, to be honest. So Blake Corum off the board at 102 to the Carolina Panthers. Just talked about him. We're going Trey Benson overall, over to the Washington Commanders. A little bit more electric than Brian Robinson. I think they're losing Antonio Gibson. So under that assumption, I'm going to pick Trey Benson. Like I said, under the thought that Antonio Gibson won't be there. So Benson just adds a little bit more electricity, a little bit more of that that run game or the pass game presence that Brian Robinson, he's excelled at, but I don't think that's his game. And so I'd like to see Benson kind of just either take the reins over there or just be a really, really nice 1-2 punch. And if you're getting him in the 4th round, which, like I said, I don't think it should be this late. I don't know. Things just happened in this mock. I don't know. It all happened so fast. Matt Goncalves coming off the board, or Goncalves, however you want to say it. He's off the board here to New England. Just need offensive line help. He's a very talented offensive line, highly touted by some, but there are some question marks there. But he's got, I'm pretty sure he's just like a right tackle, and that's all he's played through 3 years at Pitt. At number 104, like I said, kind of a fun player that just has up and down opinions, has good and bad moments that, you know, he just goes to an O-line needy team. Zach Zinter, another offensive lineman, just going to an offensive lineman needy team. Opinions are up and down. I actually heard Bucky Brooks recently say Zinter is like good. I wouldn't say he's wrong. Obviously, I would never say Bucky Brooks is wrong. That'd be stupid. But looking at the interior offensive line, I don't think he makes like a top 4 or 5, but I think he makes a top 7, and kind of where he's going here at 105. He's got himself in a good territory. He's a good depth piece right away, and if he can step into a starting spot, you'd expect him to, and you'd want him to. Ben Sinnott, great value at 106. I don't know how some of these tight ends are so low. Theo Johnson should be a little bit higher. Jaheim Bell's a little bit more of a H-back. And AJ Barner had some nice tape, but not a great Senior Bowl. And he's rated like really, really low down there, but I think he's a little bit better than that. I liked AJ Barner, but whatever. Ben Sinnott, good player. Walk-on turned into a, not a superstar, but a star. And he's going to probably be their tight end in this scenario if they don't retain Gerald Everett, and if they don't pursue anyone in free agency. They'll look for like Ben Sinnott here in round 4, and he's good right away. I think he's a good threat underneath, as well as like a tough blocker, like just a good character to have on the offense too, hard worker, stuff like that. So give me Ben Sinnott at number 106 of the Los Angeles Chargers. Jacob Cowing, unlike any other receiver they have, he's a little bit smaller. He's like not Chris Moore speed, but he's like very, very, like his quickness is good. Like his agility is good. I like Jacob Cowing a lot. I think the size restraints kind of hold him back, and he's very one-dimensional. So for that, I'm going to have him at 107, but I would not be surprised to see him like kind of carve out a role for himself as the season goes on. He's a good player, and I think he'd be really good for a guy like Will Levis to have underneath as an option, to have him work after the catch as well. I think Cowing's a great player, and we're squeezing him in here early on in the 4th round. Jarrian Jones, the slot cornerback, another East-West Shrine guy, I think. I don't know. But yeah, Jarrian Jones off the board to the New York Giants. Just need a slot corner. I think Cordell Flott is playing the slot for them right now, for the time being, trying to look for another rhyme for that. He's not doing a whole lot, Cordell Flott, playing in the slot. Yeah, Jarrian Jones would just come in and be in my opinion, a way better player right away. He was also another guy that's like a Bruce Feldman's guy. If not, he's really athletic. I think he could play the boundary, honestly. He's got talent. He's being underrated right now. Now, I think PFF has him in a more accurate spot, just around that 100 spot. But as far as slot corners go, he can learn and be better than Cordell Flott was through, I think Cordell Flott, this is his second or it could be even in his first year, and I'm just thinking of like Dane Belton or someone like that. But Jarrian Jones would come in. I think he'd fix something right away on that defense. I think it'd be a good idea, in my opinion, like to just move on and kind of just reset some of the blood there. It just seems right almost. Braylon Allen, 109 to the Minnesota Vikings out of Wisconsin. I think he's only 20 or 19 right now, Braylon Allen. So very young player. And I think he just complements Ty Chandler really well. He's like the second coming of Alexander Madison with, I don't know. I think Madison, he's on like a 2-year deal or something like that, but he'd get pretty quickly replaced by Allen, and then he'd have a nice counterpart in Ty Chandler. But Allen could definitely take over and be a really high upside. I mean, he is a high upside guy, but he can really reach his ceiling in the NFL with a few more years, a couple of years under his belt or whatever, because he's good, and he's not small by any stretch of the imagination. I think the measurements on him are like 6'4", 240 something, 230 something maybe. But yeah, Allen, ridiculous, by the way. Like, you just the athlete for how big he is. Like, he's just like high upside. You're banking on upside here. Safety Cole Bishop, who I'm a little bit higher on than most seem right now. He's kind of dropping a little bit, but I liked him. I think he's physical. I think they had like Jalen Simpson playing safety for him at one point. Then DeMarco Hellams came in after Richie Grant wasn't playing so well. So like Atlanta has kind of this rotational secondary, and I don't know how it'll work out under the new regime, but Cole Bishop could come in and be a situational guy right away. In my opinion, he's probably better physically than DeMarco Hellams, but I definitely could be wrong. I don't know DeMarco Hellams that well and what he does well and what his game is. So Bishop would come in at 110 and look to add to a secondary to play and carve out, like I mentioned, with Cowing. Through the season, I could see Cole Bishop proving himself as a good football player and making a role and name for himself over there in Atlanta. DJ James, kind of the same Emmanuel Forbes with less intangibles or like less size or whatever. That argument there, that whole experiment with what's his face with Emmanuel Forbes last year, that's kind of translating here to DJ James, and it's not doing well. It's not doing him any favors. Emmanuel Forbes really didn't work out, and or hasn't so far, and DJ James kind of be on that same train. He's severely underweight. He's like 167 something. He's closer to 170, if not at 170 yet. So we'll see him try to like gain weight or whatever. I don't think he's quite 6 foot. I think he's 5'11", so just a smaller guy, and for that reason he goes down here. But very aggressive corner, and he has to kind of make up for the lack of size and physicality, basically. I'd hate to say, because he's still very physical. He's a good corner. He tracks well. He did have some bad reps at the Senior Bowl, but he also did have some very good ones. So DJ James, overall, we could see him going a lot higher than this. I think there's a lot of people that are really high on him, but I think that the NFL watching Emmanuel Forbes might kind of cringe a little bit, looking at the name or looking at the height and weight of DJ James a little bit, kind of the similarities there. Kind of had my fun here with the Jets. We're going Bo Limmer at 112. He's not a Senior Bowl standout, but he participated at the Senior Bowl and did a good job. And I thought he was a great player at Arkansas over this past year, and I guess it really showed up at the Senior Bowl. So he did a good job kind of thickening his name in draft stock and doing a good job at least putting his name in the raffle bucket, if you will. Ends up being the pick here for me at 112. Good, nice center. He was very solid. He's got very strong stance. I think he's good at anchoring down. He had a few nice reps against T'Vondre Sweat, so that was also good to see, just holding his ground there, and did a good job mobility wise while also doing a nice job with his power. Maurice Liufau, maybe Liufau, I don't know. That might be racist at some point, but Notre Dame's linebacker, he can fly. The one with the long hair, you know, the one that flows really nicely and pretty out of the back of his helmet, and man, oh me, makes some plays all over that defense, does a good job flying around, like I mentioned. He's a playmaker, and the Raiders, like, they have, what's his name? Spillane, Robert Spillane, who's kind of the vocal leader there. And if you can just like surround him with a couple of athletes and he's like, hey, do that, and they go do it, and they do it well, it's a good way to go about it. So Liufau off the board here, however you say it. Having more of my fun, if you can't tell, I'm going Christian Jones. If you guys can't tell what I'm doing here with the New York Jets, let's take a look here. Oh, offensive tackle, okay. Offensive, okay, that's a offensive guy, wide receiver Roman Wilson. Offensive line, interior, and Christian Jones, who has some guard flexibility as well. You can see him moving inside to like right guard or wherever Elijah Vera Tucker doesn't. Olaf Fashanu, left tackle. If Mekhi Becton's gone and you don't address tackle in free agency, Christian Jones can go play right tackle for you. Maybe not at a high level, but he's a depth guy at least in case you see any injuries, or if Elijah Vera Tucker wants to go play left tackle or right tackle, Christian Jones can slide into left or right guard. Bo Limmer, a backup center or interior guy behind Joe Tippmann. So there's a lot going on with this Jets draft, but if you guys can't tell, kind of had my fun with it because of Aaron Rodgers, former Packer quarterback. As a Packers fan, there was a lot of command by Aaron Rodgers, and I think that the Jets would see the same thing, and they want that instant result. They want to be the Super Bowl team. They're making it a win now or bust. Like, that's basically it. We just going all in here in the draft, and I don't know if this is what they'll actually do in real life, if it'll be just 4 offensive picks. But if it is, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I see their mindset here, and I see why they'd do it. Forgot his name earlier, but it was Darius Williams, the cornerback here. But we're going Kyrie Jackson, and I know you're doubling up there. Like, that's kind of crazy, but they've already had one of the better drafts here, and I think that this only improves it, to be honest. But Quinyon Mitchell, at 17 is a good, like, it's a great corner to play outside for you on the other side of Tyson Campbell. And then you, like I said, Darius Williams might slide back. I think he's like 31 by now, probably slide into the slot. If not, I don't know if you want Tyson Campbell to play the slot. Well, you have Jackson and Quinion outside, but Kyrie Jackson is an upside pick. You're picking for upside here, and they have another pick in just one other, they have a pick and another pick. So in one more pick, they'll have the number 117. So Jacksonville, they could have gone different ways here. I must have kind of forgotten that Quinion Mitchell was a thing, because that would have complicated this pick, but I still don't hate it by any stretch of the imagination. So Kyrie Jackson is, I mean, even potentially a big slot. He moves really well. So maybe, depending on, you know, Jags fans, let me know how you feel about this. Maybe two corners isn't the best way to go, but you guys just need secondary help, in my opinion, and this would help a lot. Then it's Max Melton off the board. Now, I was looking for linebacker here for Cincinnati. JD Bertrand was like the only guy that really came to mind. He's way down here, but I don't think he's that bad. Michael Barrett might be pretty good. Curtis Jacobs, I'm not a fan of. Trayvon Wallace, I mentioned him before. Cedric Gray could go. Whatever. I was thinking about him because of the whatever. I was thinking, oh, wow, A+, 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 A+. What a draft. Or I guess that is a great draft. Max Melton, physical, fun, high energy, great player on the Cincinnati team, and that's kind of what they need. They need to put pieces together. Mike Hilton's a good player for them. Boundary's been struggling. Hopefully another year of development for DJ Turner's pretty good. You're just giving them some extra stability and depth on the back end with Max Melton. Defensive lineman Mekhi Wingo off the board, LSU's counterpart to Mason Smith, and he'll be off the board here. He's a little bit smaller than Mason Smith, a lot smaller actually. I think he's closer to the 6 foot, like 290, something like that. I don't know like the depth of the class like this well. Like, we're deep into the class here now. I used to know, like, last year I did a pretty good job keeping up with like the depth of the class and having my guys and my strong opinions. Talking about Kalen King, we're gonna take him here at 118 off the board way later, nearly 60, you know, yeah, like 62, 63 picks after the board said he should go off. So fortunate for Kalen King, quite the fall, but still got some upside there. He might just need confidence, man. Keep him sat for a year, give him a nice training camp or two, a nice rookie camp, build some confidence in him. Might help him out, but just really stunk it up over the last year and did a disappointing job, to say the least, at the Senior Bowl throughout the year. After people were watching Joey Porter Jr. like, wait, who's the guy on the other side of this guy? Like, he's pretty locked down, and then disappointed. So unfortunate for Kalen King, and he hasn't really helped this case since. So unfortunate for Kalen King. Looked at as a possible first rounder, didn't end up being a thing, and it's really falling apart for him. Quarterback Michael Pratt will be the pick here. I really like Jordan Travis, by the way. I think he'll still be drafted pretty high. I think maybe even inside the top 4 rounds here again too. But the broken leg, like the deteriorated leg, that thing is like crushed. So his leg, unfortunately, holding him back a little bit, and his draft stock might crash because of it. But Michael Pratt, the pick at 119. If Geno Smith remains to be your guy, you know, that happens. Like, I don't know if they'll want it, if they miss out on quarterback early or they have a plan, whatever it is. I'm just taking Michael Pratt to be an eventual, like, maybe he's a guy, maybe he's the guy. You know, you never know. If a team has a good enough evaluation, I just needed a way to go for Seattle, and this is the way I went. Now we have 2 straight back-to-back picks here for Pittsburgh Steelers to end out their draft, and I went JD Bertrand. They're lacking some of that command in the middle. He's a very vocal guy. He's a great, like, leader. At the Senior Bowl, he was getting everyone in line. Like, he was kind of the vocal guy there. He kind of stood out to me as like the true Mike, and he has so much experience at Notre Dame. He's done a good job kind of just being and doing his job, like being consistently good at his job. I think he's been good. So JD Bertrand off the board. They're just lacking some of that linebacker room. And then we went with Malik Washington, kind of a Calvin Austin replacement that separates way better. Like, Malik Washington might be a steal of this draft when we're looking back at it, because he's a guy with some serious upside and hella production over this last year at Virginia. I think over 1,600 yards, something close to that, maybe 1,400. Maybe I'm overselling him a little bit, but Malik Washington, man, so very good. And I can't wait to see how, I wouldn't say to see how his game translates. I would say to see where he goes and how teams are viewing him. and what roles they're going to put him in to start his career, and then maybe he just builds off that. Oh my god, wait, yeah, Javon Baker did go in the mock, and he's going here at 122. There was no reason he was going to miss out in the top 4 rounds. Not for me. I really like the way he moved. I loved the way his feet like kind of worked, his size. He's great. Like, he's just got all of the good stuff. So Javon Baker, he's got, like I mentioned, some of the intangibles. I mentioned some of it earlier, so if you guys have been watching for the whole time, you guys are goated, by the way. But also, Javon Baker, we also hit on him a while back. I can't remember where, but one of the picks. One of the 121 other picks. We're taking safety Jaden Hicks here for the Chicago Bears, who have had a very good draft here. It's just a really solid draft class for him, in my opinion. Just looking at this, like, to see the potential of them having like this sort of draft even doesn't scare me as a Packers fan, but it's a good place to start a restart, I guess. Going Shaw Smith Wade here. Another slot guy, really aggressive and with good refinement from a very well-coached defense in D'Amico Ryans and whatnot. He could be pretty good. And again, I think I took Tyke Smith for them earlier. But when Steven Nelson's gone, what are you going to do? And Shaw Smith Wade's coming in as a 4th round pick, not a 2nd round pick as a starter or anything like that. So, a good depth piece that is just a high character player. He's got some good energy and aggressive like nature to him. Yeah, Shaw Smith Wade, under the right coaching, he can turn into a pretty good player. We went Nelson Caesar here for the San Francisco 49ers at pick 125. Speedy guy off the edge that shows like some speed to power a little bit, but mostly likes to just bend around the edge. He's got some good speed. He's not that big compared to some of the other edges. I like him quite a bit. I liked his profile. He was kind of underperforming and kind of just didn't really pass the eye test for me to be like, oh, this is a 3rd round guy. This is a guy. Like, he didn't really turn into one of those for me, but I really liked what I saw from Caesar, and I think he's doing a good job, at least. Like, he did a good job at the Senior Bowl, at least cementing himself as a guy that like could beat Tyler Guyton 1 out of 5 reps or so, like 1 out of 4, maybe one third of the time on a good day. So he's good there, so taking him here. Cedric Gray for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 126. Need a linebacker, and there's Cedric Gray. He might not start right away, but he's got Levante David in front of him, and that's pretty much it. Devin White might not be on the team next year this time. Whatever it is. Cedric Gray, like, they need a linebacker, and if Gray could work out, and if Gray does a good job and the good part of his game translates, he could be actually a pretty good player. I don't know how much of an athlete he is. Pretty sure he's pretty marginal in that category compared to some of the better linebackers we're seeing nowadays. I wouldn't be opposed to like him even being your 3rd guy this year, where like in your, I don't know if they play a 3-4, but in your 4-3 sets, your outside linebacker, Levante David, or I guess Devin White, your outside backer, Cedric Gray, outside backer, and then your true Mike linebacker would be Levante David, if he decides to come back or whatever. The contract situations, trade situations, whatever that all looks like, and maybe bring one in and free agency and whatnot. But Tampa Bay, Cedric Gray at 26. My thought process here with James Williams was we needed a backup, like we needed some linebacker depth, and Cedric Gray unfortunately goes, and I'm not really a fan of anybody else at this spot other than like Tyron Hopper or even Trevin Wallace is a guy, Barrett perhaps. It really came down to like backup linebacker. And then I was like, okay, but secondary too, and looked at safety. James Williams is like a massive safety. I think he's a blueprint type of guy. I think he's a project, basically. If he, does a good job at doing the good things, and it's gonna be good. It's kind of the way it goes. You look at his size, height, weight, he was pretty good at the Senior Bowl, had sometimes I don't, or like had his moments, but I don't know, I don't think he's worth any higher than this. I think this might even be a little bit of an overdraft, but he's a versatile player, one of a kind, 6'4" safety, moves really well, played at the University of Miami. So U of M, I'm not a U of M guy, but isn't this what they do, like the Hurricanes or whatever? So I'm happy to have him. This wouldn't be my first choice here, probably. It's a good one. I could see where I could see where the pick would be coming from, and I would prefer another linebacker at this spot if we're like just solely looking for depth linebacker. But if a team really truly likes a guy on film, thinks they can get him this late and then transform him over the course of the first year, and then they come in second year and they're like, okay, let's get to work, let's put you in the starting spot, or let's give you a role and let's see how and what you do well. I think that would be a good way to look at like James Williams. Will Shipley heading to the Houston Texans. This is a guy who would just play opposite of Dameon Pierce, because I think Singletary's gone. But if they renew Singletary's contract, then yes, I don't think that this is the pick. I think that you just stick with Pierce and Singletary, but Shipley would basically be your Singletary replacement. He's a good power guy actually, but does a good job catching the football, fluidity. He's got great like one-step moves, to the point where I don't think he's like, I think he's untouchable with open field and a one-on-one situation, and he executes his like juke. He has a nasty just one step, like watching it on tape is super fun. Josh Newton will just add to some secondary depth for Buffalo, somewhere they've really struggled over the past few years. They just have struggled at the secondary spot. Like they just have not had the pieces in the back end to ever put it together consistently. Now Josh Newton, a little bit of a question mark for some people, a lot lower for others, and I don't know. Josh Newton off the board at 129. Do your research on him if you really want to know about him. I didn't dive too deep into him. I didn't even watch tape. I just looked at his draft profile one more time. I think his instincts are good enough to be picked in the higher fourth for sure, but I don't know if he's got everything else to be picked inside the top 3 rounds after Newton was maybe looked at as another like borderline first round guy to start the process, kind of a Kalen King type of trajectory here with the draft stock. Tyler Davis is a value pick here for the Minnesota Vikings at 130. Did a good job at Clemson, another like pretty small, I think like 295 is like where I think he would measure in at, or where I saw his measurements at. So Tyler Davis off the board at 130 to the Minnesota Vikings, coming from Clemson. I don't know if he'd start right away, but he definitely sees some opportunities early alongside like Jaquelin Roy. Harrison Phillips is like their only true like nose tackle, and he played so much last year. You might not want that to be the case again, and you're going to miss out on interior early, so you get it late in Davis with some like free agents or whatever, some injuries. Whatever happens, I think Tyler Davis could actually end up seeing playtime if this is the case scenario for him at 130. Audric Estime, too good of a player to fall past the 4th round, so I had to find a way to get him off the board. He fits well here, considering, okay, let's say J.K. Dobbins is pretty much, I'm not going to say done, because that's a little harsh. Let's say he's not the same player, or like he's just a little out of it at this point, and his contract's coming to an end, whatever it is. Estime steps in, and then you have Keaton Mitchell on the other side. That would be insane. That'd be a dream combo right there. And to get him at 131 is huge value. He's getting talked about right now inside like the top, 3 rounds, or like top 100 picks, like top 100 player for sure. Estime could go a lot higher than this. Another skill player that just ended up falling for me. Ray Davis, Jalen Wright, and Marshawn Lloyd might be gone by the end of this. Dylan Johnson's not that great of a player, but I can see him even being gone before we get to this point. Depth at safety, Dadrian Taylor Demerson, or Demerson, whatever, however you say that. Just depth at safety. We saw Jair Brown, Deshaun Gibson, Logan Ryan, all at disposal in the Super Bowl. So that can't be the case. I think the midst of Talanoa Hufanga, like his injury really screwed the San Francisco 49ers and just put their secondary in a bad spot. And I committed a lot of the draft capital of this draft for the San Francisco 49ers into the back end, and in Kamari Lassiter, the 31st overall pick. And then I was thinking about like a few times like picking up safety or whatever, but never really presented itself. But I put a lot of thought into secondary for the 49ers because I thought it was just something that really stood out to me when watching them through the season, because I watched every week and through the playoffs, obviously, and especially the Super Bowl, where the secondary just wasn't amazing. We're taking Marshawn Lloyd here at 133 for the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't expect him to make it this long. He's good. He's like a Clyde Edwards-Helaire with a little less power and a lot more pass game. I think like that's like the kind of good way to explain it. So probably not a comp at all. Kind of just to give you guys a picture there. Marshawn Lloyd does a good job out of the backfield, and then I was thinking about it, and he has Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams improvises a lot, and Marshawn Lloyd improvised really well with him and kind of helped the quarterback out, always being like a check down option, doing a good job getting on the move with the quarterback. Mahomes is a lot of the same, so kind of that thought process there too. Justin Egboy, or Egboigbe, someone I liked. So we're gonna pretend like we just took him here, and that'll be like the mock, obviously. So Justin Eboigbe. I think that's how you say it, Eboigbe. So Justin Eboigbe, the fun last name that he has. As fun as it is to say, it's a fun pick here. I think that he'll be picked inside of the top 4 possibly. Interesting to see how NFL teams see him. I could see him. He's another one of those like kind of tweeners at like 270 or 280. He might actually be closer to 290 now I'm thinking about it. We'll see where Eboigbe goes, but he's a power player, does a nice job using his hands, did a good job at the Senior Bowl. I really liked what I saw from Eboigbe. So that'll be all for me. I'm not going to recap all of these, but I mean, if you guys want to like kind of take a look, or let me know who your favorite draft class was down in the comments, that'd be amazing. And let me know if you guys watched all the way through. That would be absolutely insane if I get even one person that watched all the way through this video. That would be absolutely insane. This is gonna be a very long one. It's gonna take forever to get to edit. Oh boy. Yeah, that'll be all for me. Thanks for watching. If you guys enjoyed, go ahead and like, go down, subscribe, go watch the past content on the channel, and again, that'll be all. And if you watched all the way through, so appreciate it. Deuces.